I have always been intrigued by the story of the zombie apocalypse. The idea of the zombie can be traced back all the way to ancient Greece. Archaeologists have found the remains of people pinned to the ground by rocks and other heavy objects, seemingly on purpose. This has led many to believe that the fear of resurrection was prevalent, even back then. The word itself, zombie, originates from Haitian folklore, used to describe a corpse that has been reanimated. Zombies are everywhere, in our books, in our TV shows, and in our games. The idea of other humans returning to the land of the living as violent flesh-eating animals has maintained our attention despite this saturation. I would argue this popularity is due to the overall dynamic nature of a zombie infection plot. After all, they can easily blend the three main types of conflict. External conflict, that being the disagreements that emerge between characters. Apocalyptic settings are based in scarcity, not enough resources to go around. So you either have to fight for your food, or fight to make sure you get to keep your own food. Then, of course, there's the risk of infection. Do you try to work in a group to increase your chances of survival, when the same group could eat you the next day? You might be better off just shooting everything that moves just to be safe. What to do? What is the right thing to do? That question is one of many which concerns internal conflict. Being put into a life and death scenario may lead to self-serving decisions that would otherwise be labeled as taboo. If you want to survive in this new world, you have to play by its rules. When zombies begin to appear in large numbers, they form their own ecosystem, changing the landscape as they wander around. Zombies can then take on the role of an environmental threat. You can't just go anywhere you want now. The challenges a character would have to face to battle a horde of undead humans would require absolute cooperation between those who were still normal. And no game better exemplifies this cooperation than the Left 4 Dead series. Left 4 Dead is a 4-player co-op shooter. You play as one of 4 survivors on a team, bobbing and weaving through massive crowds of infected. A game of Left 4 Dead takes place across one of many campaigns, each possessing a narrative throughline. When about 1,000 zombies are swarming you and the only lifeline you have is 3 strangers, cooperation and communication are imperative for the group's survival. Left 4 Dead possesses a robust communication system. There are contextual dialogue wheels, each with several different verbal options. Choices range from simple yes and no's to giving your teammates simple commands or words of reassurance.
Are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, that's right.
Time to move.
I'm
Over here.
Yeah, let's go.
Come on, this way.
I'm with you.
Even in a single-player game with bots, this system can be utilized to create simple dialogues between characters in-game. Along with this, there are bits of dialogue which play at certain moments. Contextual events like arriving at a location in the world can be accompanied by dialogue.
Subway station's just around the corner. This way! There it is!
The main characters can formulate a game plan, pushing the story along while guiding the players to the next safe room. Just as easy, conversations between the 4 survivors can give people insight into their lives, whether it's Zoe referencing her favorite movies,
Game over, man! Game over!
or Francis talking about all the things he hates.
I hate vans.
The information we get from these simple lines of dialogue tell the stories of these survivors, and today I'm going to be using them all to analyze and deconstruct all of these characters. Left 4 Dead thrives off of replayability. A character may choose to chime in during one playthrough and say something completely different the next time you play. This makes getting a complete understanding of the characters difficult, as you could play Left 4 Dead for hours and not learn anything about a specific character. We remember these characters from one of the best zombie shooters ever made. But how many of you really know these characters? I will be analyzing every single survivor of the main cast of the Left 4 Dead series, taking note of all unique conversations and interactions, and how they change throughout the respective campaigns. It should be noted that due to the dynamic nature of these conversations, it can be difficult to understand a character's intent fully, even when paying close attention to inflection. While a portion of this analysis will be assumptive, I will be using specific lines spoken by the characters and analyze them in a broad sense. I should also mention that the lines of dialogue have a chance to overlap, every survivor can say yes or no, and every survivor can take issue with friendly fire. At times, I may reference something that one survivor says, even though another survivor can say something similar. I am not saying that this specific survivor is the only one with this trait. Rather, this trait is more pronounced in them. Hello again, people, and welcome to my character analysis of every single survivor from the Left 4 Dead series. Quick disclaimer. Getting organic footage for this game is kind of a pain, so some of the clips that I'm going to be showing as argumentation will be gameplay. However, others will be audio slapped onto gameplay. This would have taken a lot longer to make if I tried to get every single piece of dialogue in gameplay. But regardless, I'll try to make it sound as seamless as possible. Before we start analyzing anything, I think I should take the time to explain the robust character dialogue system further. Left 4 Dead can be seen as an incredibly repetitive experience. After killing your 54,000th infected, the prospect of zombie killing would lose its initial sense of awe. So, to rectify this, and make subsequent playthroughs unique, the developers incorporated a system of procedural flow and procedural communication. Walking through one area could involve a character noticing something on a wall. The conversation could change on a repeat playthrough, even if it involves the same characters.
Man, they really trashed this place. They really trashed this airport.
When a character is low on health, they will make their pain known to the group. Simultaneously, if a member of the group is better off, they will notice their friend's pain and encourage them to heal themselves. Most of these dialogues are generic, telling us nothing about the character's hopes and dreams. To truly understand the survivors on a fundamental level, we must be on the lookout for anomalies in their conversations. Changes in inflection, substitution of words, use of terminology that is uncommon in a regular person. There is a plethora of that in Left 4 Dead, and with that, let us begin our analysis of the warrior on his final mission.
I'll see peace back on Earth if I gotta murder every one of these bastards with my bare goddamn hands.
William Overbeck, or just Bill, is the oldest member of the Left 4 Dead cast. From the beret he wears and his many dialogues, we can tell that he was a member of the United States Army 1st Special Forces Group during the Vietnam War. They were an airborne division, which means that while they were technically ground combat units, they more than likely made their entrance into the combat zone via some sort of aircraft. Bill served 2 tours in Vietnam, which he presumably carried out several combat missions. His last deployment was unfortunately cut short for him, however, and you'll notice I said unfortunately. In the Vietnam War, a large portion of the fighting was done through guerrilla tactics. The Viet Cong did not have the resources to fight the US toe-to-toe, so most of them would leave traps and explosives for any unsuspecting soldier to find. One of these many traps was accurately named the grenade in a can. A grenade would be placed into a metal can with the pin removed. The secondary pin would be held in place by the circumference of the can. A tripwire would then be attached and hidden, so if any unsuspecting soldier were to trip the wire, the grenade would be removed, resulting in detonation. Even if the soldier survived, the initial explosion of flying shrapnel could lodge itself into their body, causing more than enough damage to take them out of the fight. This is what could have happened to Bill. The reason why he was discharged is because a piece of shrapnel was lodged into his knee. We don't know if this was the exact scenario. This explanation is a broad estimate of what could have happened. Now, about what I said earlier about this turn of events being unfortunate. Yes, the flying shrapnel into Bill's knee was an unfortunate event, but the real reason this was not advantageous for Bill is because he was sent home. As described on the official Left 4 Dead website, Bill simply ran out of wars. He could not return to service because of his leg. Bill is described as a drifter, endlessly looking for purpose, never finding it in a civilian lifestyle. Bill was not the only person changed forever by the Vietnam War. The long-term psychological effects of warfare on the human mind are downplayed to this day. Post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't even recognized as a mental health condition until the 1980s, long after the war was over. Soldiers who experience intense combat almost always suffer from extreme neurological symptoms after returning home, if they ever did. but these were either ignored or treated as something unique to the soldier's specific situation. Shell shock, soldier's heart, combat fatigue, the list goes on for the names that all describe the effects of warfare without understanding the real issue. On top of the effects of war, the very military lifestyle itself could be a determining factor as to why Bill was unable to properly rejoin society. The process of military training could be seen as a traumatic experience itself. Military leaders understand how graphic and stressful combat is, and while their methods fluctuate, the primary training strategy is exposure. Screaming, yelling, live fire exercises, intense physical workouts, and above all, being told what to do at any given moment. Your diet, your physical activity, your circadian rhythm are each tied to your body's natural mode of operations, and all of those things are changed to fit the military lifestyle. Most, if not all, soldiers convey that they are sore or tired in their first months of training. This all slowly goes away as the body begins to catch up. The human body is incredibly adaptable. It can adjust to things like caloric intake, physical stress, among other things. Adaptation takes time, and once that adaptation is achieved, reverting to civilian lifestyle is easier said than done. The training in a military force is not specifically physical, but also mental. They are instilled with a mental fortitude to handle making split-second decisions which could mean life or death. The other day, the most stressful decision I had to make was whether or not I should walk into a crowd of people to awkwardly grab some ground beef for my spaghetti. I was not able to get ground beef for my spaghetti that day, but with that comparison, you could probably see why civilian life is so different from military. A large portion of soldiers returning home explain how mundane everything is. Bill never managed to readjust. Everything about civilian life was dull by comparison. As a result, he became a man without purpose. But when the zombie apocalypse arrived, he was right at home. He had enemies to fight and new comrades to protect. This zeal is what had allowed him to survive this long, and his heroic nature is what will ultimately lead to his end. Let's talk about Bill's design. We've talked about his beret and what it means, but the simple fact that he still wears it only continuously supports the idea that he is living in the past. Bill disregards how other people see him. This is implied by the stains and the tears on his clothes. The green jacket he wears is more than likely a standard M65 field jacket issued to soldiers during the war. His worn military-issued jacket, along with his beret, are made to imply that he would wear these clothes regularly, regardless of damage. Bill's inability to transition into civilian life is only further exemplified by his dialogue. He uses a great deal of military vernacular in the events of the game. When picking up a fallen comrade, he regards them as a soldier.
Probably stings like hell, but they ain't gonna kill you. Up and at 'em, soldier.
When picking up a first aid kit, he will occasionally say,
First to aid, last to die.
This saying is a play on the term first aid, as in a series of medical supplies that are basic, the essentials that can be given to a person to stop more trivial injuries. A first aid kit can stop bleeding. Anything beyond that, you will need more intricate supplies. This saying completely forgoes the previously mentioned term, and instead references a situation where more than one person needs help. Imagine, if you will, two people in front of you who are dying. They both need life-saving medical attention, but you are just one person, so now you have a choice to make. The very same choice that a soldier would need to make on the battlefield if they were able to help. The first person to receive aid is the last person to die. The last person to receive aid is the first person to die. I believe this is the complete expression, and Bill had shortened it because he had heard it so many times. This potential experience could also be supported by what Bill says if there is a survivor incapacitated outside of the safe room.
We will not leave a man behind. Let's get back out there.
These are just a few examples of Bill slipping back into his military life. While being a soldier is terrible, there is a sort of kinship that forms between soldiers. When you are brought in for basic training, you are thoroughly dehumanized. You are no longer who you were before. You are one of many. Your identity is taken away. And through this process, you will find yourself relating to your fellow soldiers, finding kinship in your shared suffering. You rely on each other, you can trust each other, and you can crack jokes with each other, because it makes you feel human. This feeling of kinship is what Bill was missing. Bill's desire to be a part of something is all that defines him now. He sees his fellow soldiers as his unit, his squad. He would die for these people, and eventually he will. The day-to-day struggle of a soldier would be filled with danger and absolute paranoia. Every day you would wonder if your camp was filled with traps while you were sleeping, or if you were due for another ambush. That lifestyle represents Left 4 Dead's gameplay loop very well. The Horde can rush you at any time. Almost every single special infected is like their own trap, waiting to be sprung. Every time Bill picks up the assault rifle weapon, he almost sounds nostalgic, like it reminds him of a simpler time.
An assault rifle. This shit's getting more like NAM every second.
The assault rifle is based on the M16, which, you guessed it, was one of the many issued weapons in the Vietnam War. Nostalgia doesn't always care about the circumstances, only time. On his deployment, Bill was forced to make split-second decisions. Ate nothing considerably edible, needed to be cautious lest he get his leg blown off, and all above, he needed to survive. He acclimated to this life, and now in this apocalyptic setting, he finds himself at home again, not because he is comforted, but rather because he was previously trained to find comfort within chaos. Bill is a warrior, but also a protector. Bill's protective role is exemplified the most during the events of the Sacrifice campaign. This campaign in particular has a very unique ending where one player must always sacrifice themselves to save the lives of the other survivors. Canonically, Bill is the one who makes the sacrifice. It makes the most sense. He's the oldest, the most likely to get sick from something other than a zombie infection, and above all, this is him dying for his comrades. In the beginning of the campaign, the survivors have a clear goal in mind: find a boat, more specifically, a sailboat.
Hey, Bill, look, there's a boat. Oh, hell, there's boats everywhere.
Nope, gotta be a sailboat.
Why's that?
I ain't
First
stopping a
aid
boat
here.
every 15 minutes to go look for gas.
This desire is smart, considering that gasoline has a shelf life of around 6 months. Gas won't last forever, but wind is free. As the group moves down the riverside, they pass by several boats. Every so often, Francis offers to take one, ignoring the fact that they need a sailboat.
Weapon over here!
There's a boat.
Francis, that boat's underwater.
Look, Bill, this boat has wheels.
Son,
Reloading.
that's a trailer, and you're an idiot.
Reloading! Hey, here's a boat.
No, Francis.
And every single time, Bill tells him no, getting more and more annoyed. In a broad sense, Bill and Francis are the most similar. The developers themselves describe the two as living on the edge of society. These two characters are more traditionally masculine, a lot in common, and yet they get on each other's nerves. Well, it seems like Francis just gets on everyone's nerves, but Bill especially gets annoyed. A lot of their disagreements come from Francis's personality, which we will cover in his section. During this campaign in particular, there appears to be some sort of disagreement between Bill and Zoe.
All right, let's move. No stragglers.
Yeah, or Bill will leave you behind.
This disagreement also comes from Zoe's personality, so we will cover that in her section. During the finale of the Sacrifice campaign, they finally find the boat they were looking for, but the bridge is blocking their path. It needs to be raised. To raise the bridge, the survivors need to activate 3 generators in total, each attracting the attention of the zombie horde. When the final tank is defeated, the bridge can now be raised, but something is wrong. The bridge becomes stuck halfway. All this racket has summoned a total of 4 tanks, all making their way towards the survivors. One player must leave the bridge and reset the nearest generator, pushing the bridge up the rest of the way. The survivor who jumps off knows that they are going to die if they do this. So each of them has a chance to say something as they jump off the bridge. Bill's life had little purpose after he left the battlefield, and while this outbreak was terrible, Bill found solace over the fact that he belongs to a group again. For the first time in a long time, he rediscovered the kinship he once shared with his brothers in arms. These random strangers gave Bill a sense of purpose, and he wants nothing more to thank them for giving this to him.
You guys are the only family I got. Take care of each other.
Bill jumps off the bridge, ignoring the cries of his friends. With 4 tanks barreling down on him, he trips the generator back online, saving his family and ensuring their safety. This was Bill's final mission. Was he always planning to sacrifice himself? Probably not. Would he have done it again? You're damn right he would. And so ends the story of William Overbeck. He gave his life for the sake of others. He was a good soldier and a great man. I should mention that everyone has lines for getting off the bridge, but a lot of them are just played for laughs.
This is the last time you're gonna see these. Guns.
Funnily enough, Jim French, Bill's voice actor, actually served in World War II in the Armed Forces Radio Service. He passed away back in 2017 at the ripe old age of 89. Rest in peace, Mr. French. You helped bring to life one of the most iconic characters in all of gaming.
I drove for Hirsch once, till some guy laughed at my little brown shorts, and I beat him to death.
Francis is very reckless. His figure and the way he conducts himself would all be indicative of a man who thinks he's invincible. The design philosophy behind Francis was to emphasize his weight, both justifying his survival in a zombie apocalypse and exemplifying his confidence. He wears a black sleeveless biker jacket and a stained white t-shirt. If you look at Francis's head, you can see a scar that bears a slight resemblance to the lambda symbol, the same used for the Half-Life logo. It is unclear whether this is an Easter egg or not, but regardless, this would point towards years of hard living or several bad decisions. He has several tattoos. The largest one on his left arm reads Hell's Legion, which could be Left 4 Dead's parallel to the real Hell's Angels motorcycle club. Admittedly, I have approximately zero interest in biker gangs or biker culture, and I have a feeling that most people watching this share in that. So I'll just go over a couple of cliff notes, just enough so you can get a grasp of Francis's potential background. Biker gangs refer to themselves as clubs, mostly to avoid the negative press that comes with the word gang. They vet their recruits thoroughly, often having a year-long probationary period. They don't usually need to seek out recruits. People come to them looking to join, or they find people already doing the things that they are. Biker gangs are notorious for being linked to organized crime, and based on the Sacrifice comic, it's confirmed that Francis took part in criminal activity as well. Truly, I don't think Francis was a member of a gang. Hierarchy dominates these types of groups, and as we will go over, Francis carries a disposition to authority, and wasn't the most reliable pre-outbreak, so I don't believe Francis would last long in an organized group. Francis had a group of friends before the outbreak. Their names were Duke, Danny, and Sandra. These 3 people are comparable to the survivors Francis walks with now, but the key difference is that the previous group meshes with Francis a little too well. If character design was a form of storytelling, like I know it is, these people also share in Francis's bad decision-making habits. Francis is on the run for stealing a TV. He attempts to pass a Speech 100 check by impersonating a police officer when the actual police try to stop him outside of the store, while he is still holding the TV. I'm not trying to sound mean, but if Bill is the oldest member of the group, then Francis is not the smartest.
Reloading! We just might make it out of here.
Francis is a simple guy with simple needs, but more importantly, he's not above opposing authority to get what he wants. His previous group is not above this either, as when he returns with the TV, they don't think to chastise him for his theft and treat his inevitable incarceration as an inconvenience at best. The relationship between Danny, Duke, and Sandra appears to be apathetic. We can only assume based on the few frames we see them, but it truly feels like Francis didn't value his old group. When his presumed girlfriend, Sandra, unknowingly becomes infected, she is later shot by Duke. Instead of becoming inconsolable over the loss of his intimate partner, Francis enunciates a resounding, "Whoa." Moments later, he forgets about Sandra altogether, and then asks both of his friends to grab the nearby jukebox and bring it to the top of the building. When questioned, he explains that any party needs musical entertainment. The zombie apocalypse was, in his own words, the best thing that ever happened to him. When faced with a horde of zombies, Francis reveled in the idea that he can do whatever he wants. Pure anarchism. Anarchists believe that the government is more harmful than helpful. They disregard laws and property ownership, claiming that all foundational societal standards go against natural human existence. In this school of thought, hierarchies are based on strength. Whoever is the strongest gets the biggest cut of meat. Francis adheres to this well, sporting a stereotypical masculine persona.
Look at
Overflow
this!
pipes for Riverside.
How the hell do you know that?
Interesting true story. In 1975, the local township...
You know what? I just realized I don't care. Lead on.
I don't believe that Francis is a staunch believer or even understands the values of anarchism. I just think he simply doesn't like being told what to do. Anarchism comes from the Greek word anarchia, which means without a ruler. Proper hierarchies of groups should be based on knowledge and convictions. In an ideal world, those with the most seasoned minds would call the shots. This would then leave people like Francis in the dust, because, as previously mentioned, he isn't very smart.
Stop for a second. Nope. Follow me.
I'm with you.
I'm coming.
Right behind you.
Which?
This is why I believe Francis has adopted this anarchistic mode of operation. It's the one where he feels the strongest. Francis was never out to hurt anyone, but he was more than willing to break the rules to get what he wanted. The zombie apocalypse gave him an outlet, a slightly more acceptable method of exercising his primal desires. Things are different now. He may still be combative and sarcastic, but he allows the 3 other survivors to dictate his actions. Instead of everything being about Francis, he now acts as one piece of a larger whole. What has brought about this change? Francis's previous group and the way he conducts himself within is a clear example of groupthink, a psychological phenomenon in which a group of people seek out harmony and do whatever they can to maintain it. To maintain group cohesion, everyone agrees to go along with what the group is doing, despite what they believe is the best course of action. Francis displayed self-destructive tendencies before the outbreak, which only continued as his group never saw fit to criticize him, effectively enabling him. In his mind, he realized that when left to his own devices, his stupidity would lead to his end. This is pushing the bar of conjecture, even by my standards, but there is one line in particular which could point towards Francis suffering from a history of drug use.
Hey, a little pick-me-up.
When he picks up one of the many healing items in the game, pain pills, Francis rejoices over the fact that he found a little pick-me-up. Again, this could be just his carefree attitude when describing a bottle of medicine, but the way he so nonchalantly refers to medication in such a playful way may be hinting at him perceiving it as such. This isn't medicine, it's something to take the edge off. Francis has a clear aversion to authority. Through his conversations with Bill, we can tell that Francis and Bill butt heads on occasion. Bill projects authority. He's older, treats the group like his soldiers, and decides what the group does next. Francis disregards such authority and, in his infinite lack of wisdom, clings to his uncooperative, almost antagonistic personality type.
We've been immune so far, but, well, if I start to turn, promise you'll shoot me.
What if just your beard starts to turn? Can I shoot that?
Speak up, Francis. Your voice got all muffled from your head being so far up your ass.
Francis goes along with these plans, either because he fails to come up with something himself, or it's safer than his idea. Also, I believe it's just in his character to be sarcastic. Francis is aware that he's better off with these people, but that won't stop him from being himself. I think there may be something a little bit more nuanced hiding beneath the surface of Francis. His tough exterior, his antagonistic nature, his aversion to looking weak, and his criminal past would all point towards hard living along with a not-so-secure home environment. We have next to zero information regarding his parents or his home, but if I may throw up a guess, I think Francis's issues with authority, specifically when it comes to Bill, could be a result of father issues. either growing up without a father figure or that of an irresponsible father figure. Or maybe, looking at this from a different angle, his upbringing is a direct cause of his personality. Francis simply believes that this is a normal way to act. I noticed that despite Francis getting on Bill's nerves, or how Lewis's positivity gets on Francis's nerves, they are still a team. They look after each other. They pick each other up when they're down, cover for each other, and stay together. Not everyone expresses affection the same way. Francis may be sarcastic when talking about Bill's plans, or talk down to Lewis when he tries to stay positive. But in his mind, the way he acts is just normal. Sarcasm is just Francis's love language. Moving on to his relationship with Lewis, Francis does not care for Lewis's positive attitude, which could point towards Francis believing it to be an alien way of thinking. There are several instances where Lewis tries to keep his spirits up, to such extent that it starts to annoy Francis.
Look, we're gonna find that sailboat right around the corner. You just watch.
Lewis, if you don't stop being positive, I'm gonna sink the boat just to make you sad.
Thinking positive got me where I am, Francis.
About to die in a brick factory? Cause I'm about to do that too. And I got to complain about shit the whole time.
While Lewis's section will be filled with all the ways he tries to center himself in a zombie apocalypse, we'll talk about Francis's opposing attitude now. Francis is a pessimist, or at least he gives off several traits that would give you the label as such. This accusation stems from the long list of things that Francis hates, such as:
I hate subways. I hate helicopters. I hate hospitals. I hate sewers. I hate stairs. I hate elevators. I hate vans. I hate planes. I hate tunnels. I hate train yards. I hate the woods. I hate small towns. I hate the water.
Francis, is there anything you don't hate?
You know what I don't hate? I don't hate vests. Hey, Lewis? Did I ever mention how I feel about islands?
Come on, Francis, give it a rest.
No, I'm being serious. I really hate islands. I have insulaphobia. I'm afraid of islands.
Are you joking?
No, man, it's a medical condition. Just my goddamn luck.
Shit, Francis. When we get there, I got your back. I'm gonna keep an eye on that island for you.
Stupid island.
Punk island.
Dumbass island, shithole.
Punk ass bitch island.
That last one concerning the island is from the Sacrifice campaign. Francis has insulaphobia, fear of islands. This piece of dialogue appears to be for comedic purposes, but with this dialogue comes a revelation that potentially recontextualizes Francis's entire character. He hates a lot of things, so I wonder if there is a similar reason why. Hatred is a strong negative response that can be caused by many different things. Fear is a big contender. Francis hates many different things. Things that for the most part seem random, or bear no connection. Perhaps Francis hates everything because he's afraid of everything. Francis tries his best to give off the impression that he's tough. Maybe, under all that muscle and black leather, is a man who never learned to face his fears, and as a result gravitated to a group of people who never questioned him. This made him feel safe. Maybe deep down, Francis is just as afraid of this big scary world as much as we are. To survive in a world this scary, you must be just as. Match it, stare it right in the eye, and tell it what you think of it. Insulaphobia is a fear of isolation, as well as islands. Sure, Lewis gets on his nerves, and Bill tries to tell him what to do, but he stays, because the thing that Francis hates the most is being alone. I hate fear.
Stay positive, guys. I got a good feeling about this.
Now we get to Lewis, the heart and soul of the Left 4 Dead team. Lewis remains positive in a world of flesh-eating monsters. In the words of the developers, Lewis tries to hold on to the last shreds of normalcy and civilization. I would credit his tie as a great representation of this. A necktie is a decorative piece, worn to complement whatever you are currently wearing, usually a suit. In an apocalyptic setting, wearing a tie could be considered dangerous. A zombie would reach and grab at anything it could connect with to pull its victim closer. While Lewis has no protruding hair, a tie would be dangerous to wear for this reason, and yet Lewis keeps it. I would also like to point out that Lewis hasn't fully tied the tie up to his neck, like you would normally do. This could imply a few things. Lewis could be aware of the dangers of wearing a tie, so he keeps it loose in case he needs to lose it quickly. If we were to look at this in a more symbolic sense, it could be indicative of Lewis teetering on the edge, so to speak. Yes, Lewis is still holding on to hope, but as represented by his tie, he is not 100% confident he should.
Military jail, train ride, and now back to walking?
It'll do you good, son.
I'm trying, Bill. I'm trying.
First aid kit over here.
The loose nature of the tie could be made to imply that Lewis is barely hanging on himself. Finally, we have a possible yet less complex reason being that Lewis just holds onto it because it's a keepsake. The rest of Lewis's design would coincide with the tie, implying that pre-outbreak he held a position in an office environment. Lewis has a background in corporate America. Lewis is in upper management, so while he isn't the guy at the top making the potentially morally dubious decisions, he is absolutely a large cog in the network, keeping everything running. As a result, he would be instilled with a greater deal of responsibility. I use the term network figuratively, and literally, as it was revealed in the Sacrifice comic that Lewis worked in IT. I'm currently learning IT myself, funnily enough. The thing that I've gathered so far is the biggest hurdle when working in IT is not the computer components, but the human components. As an IT employee, your job is to be the expert who works with nothing but novices. Not only is your job to help the person with their computer, but to give them peace of mind. Lewis, without a doubt, excelled in IT, and I'm not just saying that because he was confirmed to work in management. From just the way he speaks, I can tell he was good at diffusing despair in those who would call him for IT assistance. This success more than likely comes from Lewis's ability to remain optimistic in a stressful environment. The most common strategy incorporated in a lackluster situation is to focus almost religiously on the positive outcomes rather than the negative. If you are going to maintain a favorable attitude, you have to believe that good news is coming your way. Look forward and chase the carrot of success, even if it doesn't exist. Imagine that it does, and keep moving forward. Every so often, Lewis will give an optimistic cheer, claiming he has a good feeling about this. Lewis has adopted this as his mantra. Mantras are borrowed from Hinduism. They are repeated words or phrases that help people concentrate or return to a specific headspace. I actually incorporate this into my own videos. Why do you think I start every single one of my videos with saying, "Hello again, people"? It's a mantra. My mantra. It helps me start my scripts and my videos because it allows me to focus, center myself, and get in the mood to make content. It's not something I say in my everyday life, and that is intentional. Like seriously, who in their right mind says, "Hello again, people," in a normal conversation? Lewis has adopted the mantra, "I have a good feeling about this," to add a layer of protection to his optimistic attitude. Saying this phrase has become a habit for him. It puts him in a positive mood, and it allows him to maintain it in times of extreme strife. In this, Lewis has adopted an optimism bias. An optimism bias is when someone overestimates the nature of a future event. They expect something favorable to happen, and therefore, they make unrealistic assumptions about the future. Lewis is in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. His fellow humans have turned into mindless animals and want nothing more than to eat him. The only thing stopping that is a well-placed shot with a firearm. These are truly dire circumstances, and yet here is Lewis holding on to his good feelings.
I got a bad feeling about this. Oop, it passed. I think we're gonna be just fine.
Maintaining resolve in an apocalypse is how he made it, so Lewis survived this long. But that is not to say that it's a healthy way of thinking. Everyone has a limit, some smaller than others. Lewis clings to hope, hanging on to that last bit of positivity that Francis and Bill have left behind. While Bill isn't willing to challenge Lewis on his optimistic attitude, Francis openly criticizes Lewis. As we discussed prior, Francis's behavior points towards an unstable upbringing filled with many negative events. Considering this, you could see Francis as the polar opposite of Lewis. This way of thinking is alien to him, especially at the scale which Lewis employs it. When left on their own, these opposing sides would make illogical decisions or fail to come to an objective conclusion regarding events to come. Together, they balance each other. Lewis keeps Francis from seeping into despair, while Francis maintains reasonable expectations in Lewis. Now the question points to, How did Lewis adopt this positive way of thinking? At the beginning of the second chapter in the Sacrifice campaign, Francis notices some Japanese calligraphy on the safe room wall.
What the hell does this mean?
Let me see. Taki, I love you, goodbye.
Whoa, how'd you do that?
I interned in Tokyo.
Lewis reveals that he interned in Tokyo, where he was able to learn a little bit of Japanese. An internship is a period where someone works for a specific company to get experience for a certain type of work. You know how sometimes when filling out an application that says entry level, they require a year of relevant experience? This concept is one of the reasons why the job market is stupid, but internships are one of the avenues where you would get that experience. I have never interned anywhere before, but from what I understand, they essentially make you work at their company for free so you can get experience in that field, and you can put that experience on your resume. Technically, you are getting something out of the internship, but not monetarily. There are paid internship positions, but I would imagine these are only slightly better alternatives. The position isn't nearly as important as the location. Japan takes their work very seriously. I am in no way an expert in the inner societal norms or work culture in the country of Japan, so I would like to direct your attention to someone who not only lives in Japan, but seeks to honestly and critically expose the detrimental work practices of such. Pickleism, forgive me if I mispronounced that, is a YouTuber who made a video giving her thoughts regarding Japanese work ethic and the overall culture in the workplace. In Japan, there is this lingering problem notoriously referred to as karoshi, overwork death. Work has taken over many people's lives in Japan, working upwards of 50 to even 60 hours a week. The epicenter of this problem lies in work culture. In Japan, hierarchy and seniority are valued above anything else in the corporate space. Managerial positions are held by more senior members, and as a result, more traditional ideals are valued by those at the top and supported by those further down the pecking order. In Japan, if you leave work before your boss, you might as well not show up the next day. Okay, maybe it's not that extreme, but leaving work is seen as a sign of laziness, whether your work is done or not. It's not uncommon for a Japanese employee to remain at their work area doing virtually nothing, only looking busy so that their boss doesn't perceive them as a bad worker. Promotions are based on perceived effort regardless of actual performance, and in their attempts to receive such promotions, employees adhere to these standards, much to the detriment of their health. These incredibly long workdays and work weeks don't even show results in company performance. The reason I am exploring this facet of foreign work culture is that it almost completely explains Lewis's work ethic and his ability to maintain a positive attitude. Lewis was an intern from another country, so while not outright claiming he was a victim of prejudice, working as an American in these conditions could be shocking to say the least. Whatever the circumstances, Lewis had to adapt or risk losing his internship position. Working long hours and potentially not being paid would change anyone. It should be stated that we do not know the full terms of Lewis's internship. Like I said, there are some paid internships, but just the time and the work culture alone would be enough to change you. While working in a corporate setting isn't the same as living in a combat zone, it can be high stress in its own way. Moving back to America would make the corporate American ecosystem look tame by comparison. In the Sacrifice comic, we can see Lewis asking one of his employees to come in during the outbreak. Lewis is not listening to reason or logic as he argues how much praise they would get for being the only people to work during this state of emergency. Those who seek to earn a higher wage or hold a greater status must become yes men. Groupthink is also found in abundance within this environment. So, in a way, Lewis and Francis are alike in that regard. They both come from dogmatic backgrounds that may have led to their demise had they not left. Now, I may seem like I am taking the stance that nothing good can come from Lewis's optimism. This is not the case. Japan is filled with some of the hardest working people on the planet. Their only real failing is not efficiently harnessing that drive to succeed. While overworking is a major problem in Japan, that work ethic clearly allowed Lewis to succeed where others failed, and that drive to succeed is what has kept him sane in between moments of dodging the undead. There is a Japanese proverb, potentially one that Lewis heard and lives by, Nanakarobi Yaoki. Fall 7 times and stand up 8. If you are knocked down by the many unpredictable convulsions of life, pick yourself up again, no matter what. Lewis, in his partially misguided way, represents the indomitable human spirit. His optimism may be illogical, but sometimes you don't need logic to survive. Sometimes it's the unrelenting desire to persist at all costs that will carry you into the next day. Maybe in a group of pessimists, Lewis is needed to keep the group human and give the group something to hold on to. Yes, his optimism may be misplaced, and absolutely, his suit is probably uncomfortable. But if he lets it slip and falls into despair, then no one will be there to do his job. This is Lewis's purpose, to remind the group that they are human and they can make it through this. Lewis's gut has to be right one of these days, right?
Hey, Francis, they've got the latest issue of Hating Everything magazine here.
Zoe is the youngest member of the group. As a result, she is seen by the others as the one who should be protected more often than not. Zoe's death appears to be the most distressing across the board of survivors, especially Bill.
One of those sick sons of bitches just sealed all of their death warrants.
Zoe wears a red jacket, given to her with the intent of distinguishing her amongst the others. The development team made it a point to make it so the 4 protagonists were easily identifiable compared to the zombie horde. On paper, this may seem like an interesting design factoid, but in practice, this decision was crucial for the game's success. Left 4 Dead is a horde shooter. Hundreds of zombies can crowd your screen at any given moment, along with select enemies that can spoil your vision along the way. Identifying your allies during a panic event, or even just to seek safety, is crucial for your survival. Zoe distinguishes herself from the group with her personality as well, often taking time in between killing zombies to make jokes.
Free copy paper? Sweet! The apocalypse was totally worth it.
In the Sacrifice comic, we can see that Zoe is pursuing a film degree before the outbreak. Throughout her adventures, Zoe quotes several famous movies.
Almost there. Almost there. I hate putting the lotion in the basket. Slimed me!
Sorry, I can't show you the actual clips those lines were taken from. Copyright's a pain in the butt. Her interest in film doesn't tell us a great deal about her, aside from her general interests. But if we take this and combine it with the fact that we know that she wanted to make her own films, we have a little bit more to go off of. Zoe loves storytelling. She has clearly been inspired by the stories she's been told, and now she wants to have a go at it herself. The exact reason behind why she chose film is unclear, but I could broadly boil it down to the fact that it would give her a sense of control. As we will discuss in a moment, her parents have her life planned out for her. They argue like she isn't there, and the progenitor of those arguments is that they have opposing ideas for what Zoe should do with her life. Being a movie director would give a profound sensation of control, used to create something that was directly representative of your life, your experience. I believe that as the movies that Zoe has watched have influenced her formed identity, she seeks out this avenue to express her identity to the world through her own creative works. Anterior to the zombie outbreak, she was a film student who at the time was not getting the best grades. This is what leads to an argument between her mother and father. While they argue, Zoe is literally caught between their bickering. Instead of addressing the problem at hand, that being Zoe having trouble with her grades, they decide to bring up the terms of their divorce, no doubt a result of hurt feelings regarding the subject. It soon becomes very clear why these two people split up. They don't mesh well together, they're not compatible, and they would rather take jabs at each other than converse the problem to a solution. Zoe, by most accounts, is being ignored, treated like she's not involved in the issue whatsoever, when she absolutely is. Her grades and her interests are of no concern to either of them. Zoe appears to be suffering from the result of uninvolved parents, parental figures more engrossed in their plans for Zoe rather than Zoe's plans for herself. An infected breaks their way into Zoe's house. Of course, it attacks them, killing Zoe's mother, who then attacks her father after turning herself. They now understand what has happened, and they also understand that the infection spreads via a bite. And if they're going to stop Zoe's dad from turning, they have to act fast. Zoe's father expresses his affection, and she responds in kind. The loss of her parents, along with their uninvolved nature, could be the reason why Zoe has developed this non-familial bond between her and Bill. Zoe and Bill are close. While we don't see any specific instances of Bill and Zoe bonding, what we can tell is a distinct difference between how these characters talk to each other.
That wasn't necessary.
Glad to be of help, old man.
Thanks. Nice shooting.
Thanks.
Damn, kid, that was a good shot.
Thanks a lot.
In my testing, I found that often Bill would refer to Zoe as kid, and Zoe would refer to Bill as old man. It should be noted that Bill can call anyone kid, but considering Zoe is the youngest, she would be the intended target for that label. Zoe can call anyone sir, but she specifically refers to Bill as old man. The relationship between Bill and Zoe is nothing unique, and it's not exclusively between them. This is called a family of choice. Also referred to as a chosen family, this is a concept that appears to have become more and more common than ever before. It refers to a group of people not related by blood who look after each other. Contrast to your family of origin, this is a person or group of people you find who care for you based purely on your qualities. Those who are either mistreated or forced to mold into something else by their biological families finally have decided that they've had enough, making the complicated decision to leave them behind, seeking social support from others. This could be due to several reasons. You are a veteran seeking support for your post-traumatic stress disorder, you could be a recovering drug addict, you could be a victim of abuse, and yes, you could be a victim of a family that doesn't see you for who you are. Zoe's parents both tried to make her into what they wanted her to be, to the extent that they disagreed so much it tore their marriage apart. Zoe loved her parents, but there was always a shadow looming over her that they didn't love her for her. This was not the case with her new family. All the Left 4 Dead survivors can be seen as examples of the chosen family, but Zoe and Bill exemplify this more, both with their actions and with their words. For example, if a survivor dies, Bill has a chance to shout out,
This is going to hell in a handbasket real fast.
and Zoe has a chance to shout out something very similar.
This is going to hell real fast!
This isn't lazy writing, giving two characters the same lines. These lines are to more signify just how much Bill has rubbed off on Zoe. We see this even more towards the end of the Sacrifice comic. At the end, when Bill has made his sacrifice, Zoe takes his place as the playmaker. She assures the group that they will make it to the island and they will protect each other, exactly as Bill asked them to. Zoe returns this sentiment, as when Bill sacrifices himself for the sake of the group, Zoe makes sure that Bill knows just how much she cares for him.
I'm sorry, Bill. I love you.
Zoe has formed this relationship with Bill the strongest. However, there appears to be a pretty strong connection between her and Lewis as well. Every survivor shares simple dialogue patterns. If a survivor says thank you, the survivor in front of them will say you're welcome, being the intended target. This is the reason why we know that Zoe is the only one who calls Bill old man, as Zoe only says it when she's looking at Bill. There is a similar anomaly when it comes to Zoe and Lewis.
Zoe, thanks. I owe you one.
Anything for you, Lewis.
Girl, thanks.
Anything for you, Lewis.
One of these line readings is cordial and happy, while the other reading carries an almost infatuated tone. Inflection, or the change in the form of a word to signify a change in meaning. The idea of inflection really makes me realize how complex the act of spoken language is. Like, it's not enough to understand a word as it's said, but the way it is said can take on different meanings. The point of this identification is to ascertain intent. Aside from this slight change when Zoe says you're welcome, in the No Mercy campaign, Zoe can make a seemingly random expression of how she believes Lewis would look attractive in a hospital gown.
Lewis, you'd look good in one of those hospital gowns.
Not only making a point to comment on how Lewis looks, but also implying that she thinks about the way Lewis looks on occasion. So, is Zoe just being friendly, or is there an actual romance brewing between these two characters? Well, we know the answer due to a hilarious line that Zoe says in the Sacrifice campaign, but for now, let's assess why these two characters would develop feelings for each other. More specifically, why Zoe would care about Lewis. Zoe can be seen as a representation of innocence that the world of Left 4 Dead has lost. While Francis and Lewis are not exceedingly older than her, she is the youngest, and being the youngest gives her a more unadulterated view of the world. Pun intended. During moments of rest, Zoe can be heard cracking jokes, either for her own entertainment or to try to invigorate her friends. Occasionally, you can also hear her wonder if the world will ever return to normal. Zoe is an altruistic type of person. There is a potential line of dialogue that can play during the sacrifice campaign.
Man, Zoe is pissed.
Well, I'm pissed too.
Really? This is you pissed?
Shut your traps. Let's move out.
This narrative string is made to express how Zoe is upset that Bill refused to stop the train, allowing survivors at the military outpost to perish from the horde. I think it's very clear why Bill insisted that they were better off without them. Zoe doesn't see it that way. There were people who needed help, and to some extent, they could have done so. This disagreement leads to a series of arguments between the two characters.
So this is really it. We're gonna run away to some island. So long, world. Good luck with all the zombies.
Damn it, Zoe. We trusted CETA. We trusted the military. And they left us to die. You think they'll ever let us back in? We're on our own, kid. It's high time you started acting like it.
Zoe is no doubt trying to hold on to what remains of the old world. A similarity she shares with Lewis. Perhaps this part of Lewis has rubbed off onto Zoe, and the comfort she gets from his optimism is the cause for attraction. Lewis has been through a lot, just as they all have. While Bill maintains a stern confidence, and Francis complains, Lewis attempts to keep the group's spirits up. I wouldn't go as far as to say that Zoe believes in all of his good feelings, but rather she welcomes a certain level of peace that they give. Sometimes it's just nice to hear someone tell you that everything is going to be okay, whether it's true or not. This inspiring personality has encouraged a sort of attraction between Zoe and Lewis, but is it of the romantic variety? No. This is confirmed in one of the voice lines that can play when Zoe has to be the one to jump off the bridge to save the group.
Lewis, I will always be your friend.
Honestly, I think getting mauled by 4 tanks would have been more agreeable at this point. Imagine your friend sacrifices themselves to save your life, and in their dying words, they spent them to clarify that they only ever saw you as a friend. Dang, Lewis. Tough break. The final piece of story that we get from the original cast of Left 4 Dead comes from the Sacrifice comic. But right before that, there is the events of the Passing campaign. In the Passing, you play as the Left 4 Dead 2 survivors, who in turn meet up and collaborate with Left 4 Dead 1 survivors. The conversations between these 7 characters will be used as a transitional period as we move between games. With the commencement of the Dead Center campaign, we will briefly transition into Left 4 Dead 2 survivors. This campaign is unique to the others because it seeks to begin a narrative, introducing us to the characters. The previous cast were already acquainted with each other before the No Mercy campaign. Here, the different possible scenarios allow us to get a feel for the characters as they form their bond. Left 4 Dead 2 is unique in this way. As you learn about the characters learn about each other. The 4 survivors don't refer to each other by their names until the moment they get into the elevator and introduce themselves. This specific section will not be formatted as the same as the previous ones. It will only cover the initial meeting of these characters, then move on to the Passing campaign. A helicopter, initially intended to pick up survivors, has taken off, leaving our 4 protagonists behind. The plan now is to move on to the evacuation center located in the mall. So now the group must make their way there, fighting infected along the way. There are several conversations that can happen in this scene. From the beginning, there appears to be friction between Coach and Nick. When the helicopter flies away, Coach asks where the heck is the helicopter going. Nick is seemingly annoyed by this, declaring that it's gone and Coach should just say hell. Doubling down, Coach stands firm that there is no need to swear.
What the heck is that chopper doing?
It's leaving us. Also, say hell.
Hey now, no need for cussing.
Nick, initially, is standoffish, almost insulted that Coach decided to refrain from using foul language. Coach is a high school teacher. He has lived and worked in an environment where that level of civility was a necessity. You shouldn't swear around children. This is a more traditional belief, but a belief that Coach holds to regardless of zombie danger, at least for now. Coach and Nick will clash several times as the journey continues, only exemplifying more how different their previous lives were. They can also clash in another conversation, where Nick says,
God
Don't take the Lord's name in vain.
You're serious, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Can this wait?
Coach is very religious. Therefore, he maintains that the Lord's name should be used with respect, a belief that Nick absolutely does not reciprocate. Nick is almost baffled by Coach's personality, completely convinced up until this point that people with this level of piety did not exist. This scene can also introduce us to the overly optimistic Ellis. While he is in disbelief that the helicopter has left them behind, Nick is not surprised at all, being more of a pessimist.
Hey! There's still people on the roof! Get back here!
You think they saw us?
They saw us all right, and they're not coming back.
Several of these disagreements between Nick and Coach share one similarity, in that they are diffused by either Ellis or Rochelle. Rochelle reacts to the zombies in a particularly interesting way. Being a news producer, she already had a limited amount of information about them.
Reports were really fragmented. Cedar never told anyone it was this bad.
She is now thoroughly convinced at this point that the zombie threat was downplayed by Sita. I should reiterate this for the sake of consistency. There will be times where I cite a specific character acting a certain way or saying something specific, but I am in no way saying that the cited character trait is exclusive to them. The dialogue works in such a way that each actor was asked to record similar lines. For example, every survivor in the intro has a chance to say that they should arm themselves. Introductions to characters also means an equally important debut of the opposing side. Considering this is the survivor's first exposure to the infected, they do not have distinct names for the special infected at this time. The cast can be heard using their own unique names when identifying them.
Jumper!
Leaper! Reloading!
Nick has a unique reaction to each special infected. Every time a new special infected appears before the group, and they are defeated, Nick can make a facetious remark insulting their appearance.
So that's a hunter, huh? What's he gonna do? Go for a jog at me? So that's a jockey, huh? Cute little guy. So that's a smoker, huh? Bet he's popular with the lady zombies.
This could mean a lot of things. Maybe Nick simply comments about how other people look all the time, gaining amusement from the less than ideal appearances of others. Or, a more nuanced approach, maybe he's trying to comfort himself. These creatures could kill him if he is caught by one by himself. So, to not let this deter him, he insults them, convincing himself to not be afraid. The only time this doesn't work is when he fights a tank.
What the hell is that?
No idea, but I don't think it's friendly.
So that's a tank, huh? Jesus, that thing is huge.
Nothing can get around how deadly that thing is. Every survivor can make a remark about a special's appearance, but Nick's seemed to be the most interesting, as it portrays his snarky persona. Upon entering the last working elevator, the survivors get a chance to introduce themselves. And of course, it changes depending on who's alive and who is currently in the group. Lines tend to repeat, so we won't go over every possible interaction, but rather highlight the ones that exemplify the character traits the most. In the elevator, Nick has a chance to tell the other survivors that he isn't planning on sticking around. Already, we can see that Nick is not one for teamwork. He is cordial enough to tell everyone his name, but he makes it clear that he might not be around long enough for them to learn it.
I'm Rochelle. What's your name? Ellis. Pleasure to meet you, Rochelle.
My friends call me Coach. I guess y'all can do the same.
Name's Nick. Don't worry about learning it, because I ain't sticking around long.
Let's stay together for a little while longer at least, okay, Nick?
Perhaps this is a preventative measure. Nick isn't interested in forming bonds with these strangers, so to save him the emotional conflict of leaving them, he intentionally alienates himself before anything can happen. Perhaps this is a defense mechanism, to push people away before he finds himself attached to another person for support. Nick's lack of trust is seen in another potential line where he asks if anyone was bit. The others respond with the same question, leading Nick to explain that the blood on him is not his. While Nick is clearly closed off from the rest, Ellis tends to overshare.
Push the button!
I don't know. I think we should stick together. You cool with that? I'm Rochelle. What's your name?
Well, my name's Ellis, but some people call me El. But I really prefer Ellis because El kind of sounds like a girl's name. But if you prefer to call me El, I guess you can.
Ellis can tell everyone his name, But he can also mention that he used to work in an auto body shop, people used to call him L, plays bass guitar, and even was part of a band. While not sensitive information, Ellis seems to be comfortable sharing said information with complete strangers, potentially implying that he is easily trusting of people. The conversation inside the elevator changes depending on those who are still alive.
We just became long shots. Name's Nick.
And I'm Rochelle. I admit these are pretty crappy circumstances to meet in, but, well, you watch my back and I'll watch yours.
So, pleased to meet you. You can call me Coach. What's your name?
Nick has a saying if you ride with him. A long shot is a well-known term, sometimes used in gambling, to describe a very unlikely success. A long shot is far away, making accuracy suffer in the process. Less likely to hit the target, less likely to win. He sees life as a mix of probabilities. If there are 3 people in the elevator, they will discuss the single member who died.
Damn it. Can't take losing any more people.
Hey, it's okay, man. We're gonna be fine.
Most people call me Coach, and we're gonna be okay. Just gotta keep our heads.
Name's Nick.
You call me Ellis.
Who'd we lose?
Rochelle. Poor girl.
If a survivor is by themselves while in the elevator, they will say nothing. With all those introductions out of the way, now we can see how the survivors work together as part of a group. While the overall success of a group is determined by the players, chemistry and group cohesion are driven by the lines spoken by the voice actors. One of the notable conversations along the way is Rochelle's introduction to guns. There is a potential dialogue about the gun store you pass along the way. Rochelle is typically against the use of guns. However, in this specific situation, she believes a gun store is a good idea.
There's a gun store on the way to the mall. What do you say we pay it a visit?
A gun store? For the first time in my life, that sounds good.
This conversation can be developed further, as Rochelle soon learns that she enjoys shooting guns and wonders why she was told to stay away from them for most of her life.
Ooh, I choose this one. Oh wait, this one. This one. No, this one. I want them all. Seriously, I want every gun in this store.
When the group finally reaches the mall, Coach stops everyone for the sake of saying a prayer. The plan up until this point was to get to the evacuation station and find other survivors. This naturally isn't happening, so now all they can do is get through the mall and hope that they find the authorities. Coach, being a religious man, wants to pray to his Lord for protection. Not just himself, but for the sake of the food court too.
Everybody, gather round. Let's pray. Dear Lord, see us safely through our time of trial in this mall. And please, Lord, let the food court be okay. Amen.
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 Both Ellis and Rochelle say amen when Coach is finished, but Nick is noticeably silent. Silence can sometimes be just as informative if you're trying to understand how someone feels. It wouldn't take an expert psychologist to see that Nick is not a God-fearing type. Despite this, Nick isn't judgmental either. When giving a survivor an item, he has a chance to say, "It is more blessed to give more than you receive." A traditional tenet of religious belief. Give more than you take. I don't think Nick really believes this. I believe he says this to better fit in with this group of survivors. Now, we can begin the baton toss between groups. Now that we have learned so much about the first survivors and introduced ourselves to the sequel survivors, we can see their interactions within the passing campaign. In the passing campaign, all 7 survivors can have an assortment of interactions with each other. Not only does this campaign further the development of the newer cast, but also gives us a frame of reference to where the original is after losing Bill. Here, we can expect several changes for the characters from the first game. We'll start with Zoe. Her reaction to the survivors is based on who she talks to. She is more responsive and cooperative to Coach, considering he is cordial and politely asks for help, while she tells Nick to go to hell for being a sexist jerk.
Sorry, I can't lower the bridge.
That's terrific, Cupcake. Look, is there a man up there that maybe we can talk to?
Who? I don't know what to do. Go to hell, Colonel Sanders.
Okay, listen to me, jackass. Lower the goddamn bridge so we can drive our goddamn car across.
Bite me, Colonel Sanders.
I don't believe this guy.
Actually, Francis and Zoe both expressed their disdain for Nick, both referring to him as Colonel Sanders. It's actually kind of funny that they both call him the same thing. For the most part, Zoe and Francis are nice, but they stand firm in their refusal to lower the bridge. They already lost Bill, and Lewis is injured, so if they tried to help, it would be just the two of them. Zoe, at this point, is especially group-centered, not willing to stick her neck out for people like she would before. She has decided to take Bill's final words to heart. Take care of each other, and that's exactly what Zoe intends to do. Ellis appears to be infatuated with Zoe. He refers to Zoe as an angel, or even the most beautiful woman he's ever seen.
And then once you get over here, we can fill up the generator. The generator will make a lot of noise, but don't worry, Ellis, we can cover you from up here. You got all that?
Ellis, are you gonna answer her?
She is so beautiful. She is so beautiful.
He's got it. We'll see you on the other side.
There also seems to be an interest between Rochelle and Francis, as he tries to talk to her more often than the others. Both Francis and Zoe compliment them about the car, potentially highlighting similarities between them. So, to recap, both Zoe and Francis have a chance to meet the new survivors in the beginning. Ellis takes a liking to Zoe, and Francis likes Rochelle more than the others. While both of them hate Nick, they don't have any complex interactions with Coach. Francis does have a chance to ask the group if they're vampires, to which most of them actually admit to it just to humor him a little. Francis also has a chance to pretend to be a cop, which none of them actually believe. While they might not agree during every interaction, the group is willing to play ball to get what they want. From here on, when I say survivors, or I refer to a group of survivors, let it be known that I am specifically talking about the ones from Left 4 Dead 2. I'll mention the others by name from here on as well to avoid confusion. As the survivors move into the town, they do the usual. Fight zombies, gather items, and banter among themselves. Here we get a little more to go off of between them, as they talk back and forth about the people they just met. Nick has issues with Francis, and is more than willing to fight him. Ellis teases Rochelle over the potential attraction between her and Francis, while being nervous over Zoe himself. I guess I should probably address this. There's a lot of shipping bait in the dialogue between these characters.
Do you think he's waiting for us?
Oh, sure. Rochelle and the biker dude sitting in a tree. Kissing.
Ellis!
I saw y'all looking at each other. Maybe the four of us can double date.
I'm not sure why this was the angle for not one, but two of the survivors. To ship them together, even though it's clear these groups will never meet up again. It's just strange that it happened twice. Nothing really else to say about it. I just thought I'd address it really quick. In the beginning of the last chapter, the respective groups can now talk to each other in a less taxing way. Coach and Rochelle extend the offer for the two groups to join, which is refused. I think this invitation was made to emphasize the change in Lewis, Zoe, and Francis. The change is not as dramatic as them changing their entire persona, but it's clear that they are more concerned with themselves than anything they were before. Bill was convinced that the only way they would be safe is through isolating themselves in the Florida Keys, take care of their own. Even when Bill was alive, they had their reservations about this plan, not anymore. I think they now feel obligated to carry out this plan. They feel like if they don't follow through and get to safety, Bill would have sacrificed himself for nothing.
Hey, so how do we lower this bridge?
I've been thinking about this. We lost a good man getting this goddamn thing up. I'm not real happy about putting it back down again.
So what? You gonna live up here?
Look, brother, we lost a good man. Another one is hurt. We can't get that generator filled up until Lewis is back on his feet.
Francis, we talked about this. We're gonna help them. We'll lower the bridge, but you gotta fill up the generator for us to lower it. That helps us both.
Sounds fair.
In acting the same way Bill would, they are honoring his last request. Take care of each other. Nick continues to butt heads with Francis, complaining about the dangerous sewers they had to sift through to get there. Surprisingly, Francis gives a snappy comeback, calling Nick a witch because he cries so much.
Thanks for telling us about the goddamn sewer.
Witch! Oh, sorry. Got confused by all your crying.
Yeah, He does go on.
Whatever. So what are we doing here?
Take the elevator down to the generator. Don't cry on it, though. It's electrical.
The minute we get down there, I am shooting that biker.
That joke was quick, clever, and devastating. So much so that I almost want to say that it doesn't fit Francis's character. But what the heck, I'll give it to him. The conversations between Rochelle and Francis continue to develop their attraction, mostly casual, with Francis giving a passing compliment to Rochelle's shirt. The exchange that I think is the most unique is Francis and Rochelle bonding over the fact that they both hate things.
Ugh, I hate stairs.
Oh my god, you hate stuff too?
Sure. Never really thought about it, but yeah, I hate things. I hate those stairs.
I know.
I hate that bridge.
It's so stupid.
I hate your vest.
I know. Wait. What now? I don't think this is gonna work out. Hope you don't hate filling generators up with gas. Elevators over there.
Yeah.
When we were talking about Francis, I came to the conclusion that Francis uses the word hate to convey the fact that the thing in question is something that makes him afraid. Finding another person that shares in your hatred of things would absolutely bring him some comfort. That is, until Rochelle talks about his jacket. Within the mix of attraction and conflict between these two groups of people, I find something that will always exist, even though it may seem like it slips away more and more. The ability for people of considerably different walks of life to come together and help each other.
Take this. Now be safe.
Look out!
Reloading.
Thanks, pal. Go! Run! Go!
Run to Jimmy Gibbs!
Thanks, you gotta run.
Go, we'll hold them off.
This is the longest run of my life!
Hit it, Ellis.
I got a good feeling about them. I think they're gonna be okay.
When everything is said and done, the bridge is lowered. But of course, with all the racket, there are several zombies making their way to it. There is no time for a proper exchange of goodbyes. In their brief attempts of saying farewell, there is a genuine respect and appreciation shared between all of the survivors. Even Nick expresses his hope that the three of them will be okay. Even after suffering the loss of one of their own, Zoe, Lewis, and Francis know that cooperation is what will see them to the end of their journey in one piece. During the finale, you can find Bill's body in the room next to the bridge where he perished. If you bring his assault rifle outside to one of the other survivors, you can sometimes get an optional conversation between them. In my testing, it was difficult to replicate, only happening once when I played as Nick. But by looking into the game files, every member of the group has a voice line giving their condolences for Bill.
Take this. Heads
Hey.
up.
Sorry for your loss. I'll
Here
shoot
you go.
aside. I'm sorry to hear it.
There's not many of us left, brother.
I'm starting to get that feeling
Here.
myself.
Get your asses to your car.
Thanks for the stuff.
The Left 4 Dead 1 crew made it to the Florida Keys. Aside from the seasonal hurricanes, it's a pretty safe place for them to stay as long as they have supplies. This is where their story ends. Everything else is cloaked in mystery. So now we can return to form. Now we can begin our analysis of our survivors in full, returning to the format used in the beginning. Let us start the analysis of the Left 4 Dead 2 cast with the role model of the group, Coach.
All right, everybody, you are given 110%.
Coach is the oldest member of the group at 44. As a result of his age and experience, he instinctively takes on the role of caretaker and guide for the other survivors, regardless of their willingness to listen. When introducing himself, he says, "My friends call me Coach," which is a very sweet sentiment when you realize that he is in fact a high school teacher and a literal coach. This introduction is more than likely something he would say to his students, and in knowing this, we can understand how Coach approached his job. He made his students feel welcomed, while maintaining an authoritative role through his alias as Coach. Naturally, he wanted to maintain a sense of professionalism. He never shared his real name with those around him. Forming bonds with younger people is business as usual for Coach.
Holy shit. This some sort of nightmare, goddamn zombie apocalypse and shit. Shit. The hell are we gonna do?
Settle down, son. We're gonna be okay. What's your name?
Ellis. My name's Ellis.
There we go. Most people call me Coach, and we're gonna be okay. Just gotta keep our heads.
Coach lives in Savannah, Georgia, same as Ellis. They both hail from this distinct part of the United States, often referred to as the Bible Belt. Here, people are very religious and cling tightly to their traditional values. Coach follows a very conventional way of life. Upon meeting his fellow survivors, he encourages cooperation, limiting the use of coarse language, and acts as the group's leader.
May have escaped y'all's notice, but this building's on fire.
Okay, nobody panic. I live around here, and that chopper looks like he's heading to the mall. It ain't far. I can take you there.
Good enough for me. Grab a weapon, let's go.
Coach is approaching the situation like he would any other. Group up, stay together, establish a game plan, and give 110%. Group cohesion and teamwork are at the front of his mind. Acting as the backbone of the team, he criticizes when the group fails, but also cheers the loudest when they succeed, akin to that of cheering for your favorite sports team.
We destroy zombies! That is what we do!
He refers to the group as a team, often especially when there is a downed teammate or he needs to be rescued. Coach is known to reprimand his fellow survivors when they treat other members with disrespect, or, funnily enough, when they accidentally shoot him.
Hey y'all, we're a team! Come get me!
Every group needs someone like Coach, a pillar of experience and compassion that binds the group together. Coach doesn't call the plays or order people around for the sake of feeling strong or in control. Rather, he does it because he cares. Coach is very traditional, almost innocent in a way. When he shoots his first zombie, you can tell it bothers him.
Dang, sweet Georgia Brown. Man, I ain't never killed nothing before. It's them or us.
He relents over his current situation, but he accepts it nonetheless, a cruel reality he comes to terms with throughout the course of the game. He understands that if he's going to make it out of this, he's going to have to fight. Coach has a general aversion to swearing, at least at the start. We will see him become more comfortable with using cuss words as time passes. When Coach is trying not to swear, he can be heard instinctively using a mild oath. A mild oath is a euphemistic expression, also referred to as a minced oath. It's an expression formed by deliberately misspelling, mispronouncing, or replacing a part of a profane or blasphemous word or phrase. Essentially, Coach says something random instead of swearing. He can be heard saying several oaths during the Dead Center campaign, but they soon trickle out into the subsequent campaigns.
All this way. Dang, sweet Georgia Brown. Jumping to Jehoshaphat. What are these things?
Goddamn whirly bird left without us.
Dollars to donuts. That chopper's heading to the mall across town. Oh, sweet Hosanna.
His self-censoring behaviors are most likely a result of his job and previously mentioned traditional background. A coach at the local high school would be required to employ a level of restraint when speaking. He teaches freshmen, so as a result, he has developed this habit of self-policing himself. While in my experience, a high school teacher cussing in front of their students isn't the worst thing in the world, it's still heavily discouraged. Coach, in all likelihood, spent time setting teenagers on the right path, maintaining a good example for others to follow. His exposure to this new group of adults is what leads to this shift in vernacular. This is a version of conformity, allowing your actions and personality to be altered, even slightly, by those around you. This affects everyone, albeit at different levels. We can usually undermine the level of influence the people around us have. You can and should do the best to maintain your own beliefs, but you will always be affected by your friends. Do with that information what you will. Coach loves food. And no, that's not me taking a jab at his weight. Nick does plenty of that. He is simply someone who loves food, and as a result, he has taken on a larger physique compared to the others. Coach mentions food or being hungry several times during the Dead Center and Dark Carnival campaigns.
Oh, baby, I could destroy some kettle corn right now. Oh, yeah. Cotton candy. The wise pharaoh of food. Sitting atop the food pyramid, passing judgment on all the lesser foods. Peach cobbler. I sure wish the burger tank was open. I could go for a barbecue bacon burger and a large order of fries and orange soda with no ice and a piece of hot apple pie.
Sometimes he will even mention food in a nostalgic tone. Peach cobbler was initially a European delicacy, but was heavily popularized in the colonies due to high peach agriculture in Georgia. Georgia is known as the Peach State, and the southern United States is known for their love of desserts. I think that Coach's heritage falls in line with many people who grew up in this area. Good food, love of desserts, large family gatherings to eat said desserts. It's not the most healthy way of living, but it's a life filled with tenderness and love. This background is also where Coach gets his pious nature. He can be seen telling people to treat the Lord's name with respect, recite scriptures, along with the other previously mentioned minced oaths. It's clear for all that Coach is a God-fearing man. While most people would have abandoned religion by now, Coach remains faithful. Even if he may use the Lord's name in vain, he can be heard expressing his piety in other ways.
Can we not shoot each other?
Hold on, y'all, I'm healing.
Got him.
There's gonna be some biblical shit happening to you if you do that again.
If he is ever a victim of friendly fire, he will threaten biblical retribution on the perpetrator. If Coach were to ever pass and be brought back using the in-game defibrillator, he laments over the fact that he is back here, which is kind of grim when you think about it. It would be kind of crazy if you died, went to heaven, but you were brought back to a zombie apocalypse. And because it's so bad, you would rather be dead. It should be mentioned that both Ellis and Coach reference a potential afterlife when they are revived, almost implying that Rochelle and Nick will not receive such luxuries. It also implies that there is an afterlife in the Left 4 Dead universe. Coach collaborates with Ellis, the easiest compared to the others. While the two don't see eye to eye at every single moment, they find themselves relating through several avenues. They are both Georgia natives, they both love stock car racing, and they both love the Midnight Riders, both of them loving their music so much that they can recite verses from memory.
Every lady's crazy when her daddy's not around. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Gotta reach for the top, stay on the mountain. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Every lady's crazy when her daddy's not around. Gotta reach for the top, stay on the mountain.
Honestly, there isn't anything really groundbreaking to this, aside from how entertaining it can be to watch two strangers relating over a piece of music they both love. Ellis is a mechanic, and Coach is a teacher. Their walks of life vary so greatly that I doubt they would have ever met if not for the zombie apocalypse. Yet here they are, finding a friend within each other because they share in their love for a specific band. Honestly, I just like it when art is used to bring people together. This is not to say that they always get along. Coach can occasionally find himself at his wit's end with Ellis. More accurately, when Ellis refuses to stop talking. Ellis, on occasion, can bring up many different stories about his friends, which end up going nowhere and only accomplish in annoying the other survivors with their insignificance. Coach and Nick butt heads on occasion. Their differing personalities can clash from the moment they are introduced. Nick can sometimes act rude or crass to the other survivors, so Coach, being the authoritative member of the group, expresses his displeasure for Nick's attitude.
I can't believe I'm stranded in Savannah.
Man, Savannah's awesome. Come on, I'll show you the sights on the way to the mall.
Jesus, are you from here? Look at you. That is so depressing.
Mister, I don't think I like your attitude.
Call 911. I hurt his feelings.
Okay, Nick, being an asshole may have worked before, but you can change that tune now if you want.
The cause of these altercations stem from the dissimilar circumstances of their backgrounds. Coach imbibes a traditional, righteous, familial set of values. while Nick has spent his life moving from place to place, never trusting another living being. We'll get to Nick's distrustful personality in his section, but for now let's go over Coach and his reaction to such personality. Nick is disrespectful, often showing a disregard to how other people feel. Coach is a voice of authority, much like Bill. So, someone who threatens group cohesion is going to butt heads with him more often than not. He's not used to the dangerous situations that Nick has found himself in throughout his life. He lacks a proficiency with guns that Nick appears to already have. It should be noted that sometimes Coach corrects Nick, stating that he has shot a gun before, and there are other times where he says otherwise.
My name's Coach, and I know how to shoot a gun.
I'm not legally allowed to own a gun. Hope everybody's okay with that.
I don't know how to shoot one. Guess we're even.
I would probably chalk this up to an inconsistency in the writing, so for the sake of clarity, I am just going to assume that Coach is not familiar with firearms and he has never shot at anything before. Coach was more than likely raised in an environment that has a heavily instilled sense of family and tradition. Coach is proud of the life he lives, so whenever some guy in a suit rolls around and pokes fun at your size or your friend Ellis's accent, you have to let him know that that won't slide. Coach is also a high school teacher, so he's dealt with a fair share of bullies in his time. Coach and Rochelle have a sense of chemistry that is in a middling variety. Coach doesn't relate to Rochelle as much as he does with Ellis, but on the other hand, they get along better than him and Nick. Rochelle has a tendency to play mediator between Nick and Coach, breaking up their arguments at certain moments. If there was a hierarchy of command in the group, it would be Coach first, Rochelle second. Coach and Rochelle share respect for each other in this regard, being the two most level-headed members of the group. Coach can sometimes refer to Rochelle as his favorite girl. The reason for this is probably because Rochelle doesn't breathe down his neck like Nick or get on his nerves like Ellis. Coach is my favorite out of the Left 4 Dead 2 cast. He's dripping with charisma, maintains his beliefs even in times of great strife, and above all, he looks after his friends. I'm willing to bet that Coach is one of those few people that can look past blood and form bonds as strong as family with anyone. There is no doubt that Coach sees his group as his students, who need to be put on the right path. Those strong familial bonds he was raised on have allowed him to find a new family in this group of strangers. Coach, you're the real MVP.
Want to test me? I've been through hell to get here. You are not the one to take me down. We walked through a world of shit to get here. We are not gonna die now. We are not gonna die now.
Well, butter my butt and call me a biscuit.
Ellis is a lovable goofball. While many would gravitate to the notion that Ellis is of a subpar intelligence quotient, I would argue that he is far more astute than people give him credit for. The primary justification people give for this notion surely comes from his southern speech pattern. While this verbal idiosyncrasy is a result of his place of origin, it possesses no bearing on his overall intelligence. In other words, man, just because Ellis don't talk like some kind of scientist don't mean he got nothing going on up there. Ellis's fellow survivors are guilty of this assumption as well. Whenever he begins one of his several stories, they are usually interrupted or disregarded. If left to his own devices for too long, Ellis will break out into one of his many stories, most of which concern his friend, Keith.
I ever tell you about the time me and Keith snuck into a tunnel of love? Man, if you get your spit thick enough, you see, y'all can hang a loogie off the overhang, right? So when smooching sons of bitches behind you...
Oh, not again.
I ever tell you about the time Keith tried to deep-fry turkey? Third-degree burns over 90% of his body. His doctor called up, like other doctors, to look at him because they'd never seen burns on top of existing burns.
Ellis, is now the best time?
Okay. My buddy Keith lived in a graveyard once for a whole year. It wasn't a dare or nothing. He just kicked out of his house. He said he never saw a single ghost except this one time when a ghost stabbed him from behind and took all his money, and he might have just been a homeless guy because he had a robe on with 2 eyes cut out his face.
Okay, Ellis, this is really not the best time.
Okay.
While these stories are interesting, they can sometimes contradict each other. For example, Ellis can tell 2 stories regarding the Tunnel of Love, Once where Keith almost drowned inside the tunnel, and another time where they broke into the tunnel to mess with people. While these could be different situations, or even funnier, the same situation, it is peculiar that there are two different stories for the same location. Then there are all of the instances where in the story, Keith receives life-altering injuries, such as cuts over 90% of his body, bombed by the military with nerve gas, or falling into a sewer which was later covered up with cement. Either Keith has impeccable healthcare, or Ellis is embellishing the stories. The most peculiar inconsistency revolves around a story about him and Keith escaping a burning building while running from a bunch of zombies.
I ever tell you about the time my buddy Keith and I were on the top of a burning building and we had to fight our way down like 5 floors of zombie? Wait a second. I guess that was you guys. Oh, shit, man. I can't wait to tell Keith about that one.
He then remembers that this never happened, and he is remembering events that happened in the Dead Center campaign. The exaggerated nature, along with the inaccuracies, would lead me to believe that Ellis is making these stories up. Ellis couldn't be making these stories up, could he? I cannot say definitely, but if he was, it would add an interesting level of nuance to his character. Let's just assume for a minute that these stories are made up. Again, not saying they are, this is just a thought experiment. Ellis is seen by many as a southern hayseed, disrespected or undermined by the other members of the group. Most of the time, he can't tell his stories without being interrupted. So, to get people to actually acknowledge him, take him seriously, he formulates these eccentric embellishments within these stories, desperately trying to get people to notice him.
Jimmy Gibbs Jr. is the man. I mean, I don't know anybody like that, man. But there was this guy I knew. He raced dirt tracks, not stock cars, but open wheel cars, you know? And he was racing once. And a goat...
Ellis, sweetie, can this wait?
Okay, but there was a goat.
Listen to Ellis's response when he's interrupted. He attempts to regain the interest of the listener by reiterating an interesting aspect of the story. Maybe these stories are simply an outlet for him to get the other's attention. Maybe if they hear all about Ellis's crazy adventures, then they'll begin to respect him. Whether Ellis crafted these stories to shake the painful stigma imposed against him is inconclusive. What is not inconclusive is the way he is treated by the other survivors. Nick mocks his way of speaking. Simultaneously, Rochelle and Coach treat him like a child. They don't hate Ellis or seek to alienate him from the group, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ellis felt a little removed. The official description of Ellis on the Left 4 Dead website mentions dares and other dangerous activities he would do for the sake of gaining attention from his friends. He would act out, perform crazy stunts, for the sake of his friends' approval. Let us identify the focal point of Ellis's inadequate feelings. He is never taken seriously by the others, mostly due to the way he acts or just by his accent. It's no secret to anyone that Ellis's personality has its own set of quirks.
Holy shit, guys! Kittyland!
Ellis, are you even tall enough to go on?
Hey guys, can I have a second? Alone with the car? I got some things that need saying. Man, this was the best day of my life. I love you.
Given his age, all of these things exist outside of the realm of normality. Ellis has very distinct interests, each one he clings to with a faithful passion. We don't need to understand why he chose these specific things to love, as much as we need to understand why he has such passion for these things. I will reiterate, I do not believe Ellis is dumb or of low intelligence. He is in fact very resourceful. Most of Ellis's traits can be explained if we consider the idea that Ellis might be neurodivergent. Being neurodivergent simply means that your brain functions differently from what is considered typical. Disclaimer, not an expert in neurology or the understanding of neurodivergent afflictions, but when I look at Ellis's behavior, he ticks a number of boxes that could equate him to being neurodivergent. Ellis can sometimes find it hard to concentrate, often breaking out into stories. He could be described as hyperactive or even unable to regulate his mood, prone to outbursts. It is very possible that Ellis has ADHD. or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Again, I am not qualified to diagnose anyone, nor am I unequivocally claiming that Ellis has these conditions. Despite what people may think, Ellis proves to be resourceful at pivotal moments. Ellis is primarily the one who comes up with the idea to use Jimmy Gibbs' stock car to escape from the mall. Ellis can also come up with the idea to use the Burger Tank sign to signal Virgil. Although I should mention that he's not the only one that can come up with that idea. Ellis is a mechanic. While this doesn't automatically mean he's intelligent, the inner workings of a motor vehicle can be varied and complex.
Folks call me Ellis. I run an auto shop with a couple of my buddies. We're also in a band. I play bass.
Ellis is also a talented musician, even playing bass guitar in a band of his own. Music requires knowledge and rhythm, and hand-eye coordination, all qualities that require a higher level of thinking. People with ADHD are often labeled as disruptive, or even dull. They are in no way of lesser intelligence, but rather, their brain's mode of operation causes their personality to clash with those around them. The conflict between people could lead to negative stigma or even hazing. The greatest perpetrator of this is Nick. As we've already gone over, Nick's walk of life has formed an abrasive and contrary personality. Nick is a con man, he's a liar, and he's not afraid to break the law to get what he wants. He has a distinct idea of people who live in this region, and as a result, he can be heard mocking Ellis and Coach whenever he can. Sometimes, Nick will give a southern flair when addressing Ellis, almost like he's doing it so Ellis will understand him better.
Ellis.
Reloading!
Hi, Ellis.
I hear a spitter.
Are you kidding me, Ellis?
Hey, Ellis.
Hey, Ellis. You like taters?
You know, I know what you're saying. And guess what? I do like taters.
Why couldn't I have been in
here.
Vegas when the infection hit? Or even Atlantic City?
This up just for
Instead,
you.
I'm trapped in some goddamn hillbilly tunnel of love. Did you see that sign out front? Cousins only day today.
The relationship can sometimes go both ways. For example, Ellis is not surprised at all to find out that Nick is good with a gun. Nick and his facetious jabs continue. Ad-libs his name, sometimes calling him Cletus, Cooter, or Goober, and that's just when Nick is addressing him. Nick is rude to everyone, and will deconstruct why in his section. The real thing to analyze is Ellis's ability to be treated in such a way while wanting to be Nick's friend.
Gonna beat me a zombie to death with a nightstick.
All right, let's do this together.
Check 1, 2.
Gotta reach for the top.
What's
Stay on the mountain. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Rock and roll!
I hate you, Ellis.
Well, I still like you, Nick.
Despite the insults that Nick sends Ellis's way, he refuses to let it bother him. He does like taters, and guns, and beers, and driving around in fast cars, and every single other thing that would label him as a redneck. Because that is who he is. His past brought him here, and he is happy with who he is. Honestly, any level of critique from someone like Nick is a sign that you're doing well for yourself. The hazing and the jokes don't seem to bother Ellis, and he still regards Nick as a friend. Probably because Ellis can give Nick a taste of his own medicine.
Sorry about that, Nick. Didn't mean to kill your mom.
I wanted to mention something that I found very peculiar, and I decided to do it in the Ellis section because I discovered it when I was playing as him. When inside the Tunnel of Love, for some reason, there are distinct voice lines where the survivors add "of love" after almost everything they say.
Into the maintenance tunnel of love. Through that blasted out hole of love. Hey, some guns here. Incendiary ammo and love here.
Rochelle and Ellis are the only two that do this, so maybe it's like an inside joke between them, but I'm not really sure what that's about. As mentioned earlier, Ellis and Coach are Georgia natives, resulting in similar interests and similar personalities. Both Ellis and Coach are fairly religious, believing that there is an afterlife waiting for them. Coach definitely sees him in the same vein as one of his students. Coach typically calls him youngin' or boy, signifying his view of Ellis being that of a child. Everyone in the group is an adult, but that doesn't matter to Coach considering his protective nature is out of habit. When it comes to his relationship with Rochelle, they find themselves acting like siblings, Rochelle being the older sibling. Rochelle looks down on Ellis, but not in a way that is condescending, but somewhat supportive. She often refers to him as Sweetie or Honey, pet names given to match his upbeat personality. There's a lot to be said about a man who can walk through hell with a smile on his face, to maintain a cheerful tone steadfast against the typical downward spiral that would befall any other man. Ellis is a lot like Lewis in that regard, doing their best to maintain the group's spirits. Ellis is not the most sophisticated of people. While those around him falter over the grim circumstances, allowing themselves to be forever altered by this apocalypse, Ellis maintains himself. Before, Ellis was the type of person to seek out the approval of others, through dares and crazy stunts. While these several traumatic near-death experiences have not been the most enjoyable, I think they have changed Ellis in that regard. When Nick insults his accent, he wears it like a badge of honor. He truly does like taters. Ellis does not live the most sophisticated of lives, but this life could be cut short any day of the week. There is simply no point in seeking the approval of others anymore. Ellis has finally accepted himself. He is a gun-shooting, race car watching, guitar playing, young and crazy redneck. That is who he is, and that's what he enjoys being. As long as you're not hurting anyone else, you're perfectly fine the way you are. I know that it may seem like I've painted the other survivors in a bad light, making it seem like all they do is talk down to Ellis, but truly the group holds together because of him. He is the youngest, so as a result he may get more flack, but like Zoe, he is the one seen as the one to be protected. Nick and Rochelle see him as their annoying little brother, while Coach sees him as one of his crazy students. Regardless, they still love him. And despite everything else, he loves them.
Oh, man. I mean, you look fine. Don't worry, let's just get you up.
Rochelle is the mediator of the group. Whenever there is a fight, she demands cooperation, putting an end to the fighting.
God damn it! You just missed it!
Don't take the Lord's name in vain.
You're serious, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Save the pissing contest for later, guys.
As a result, Rochelle receives an equal level of respect from every other member of the group. Even Nick is afraid to insult Rochelle. She acts as the mother or older sister of the group. While she isn't as experienced with leadership as Coach, she can keep a cool head in stressful situations. Rochelle is a very balanced person, and she is very adept at keeping her mental state stable. She can often be heard talking to herself to calm down. Verbally expressing your internal position or belief, or self-talk, is completely normal, despite how it may seem contrary to normal behavior. Rochelle incorporates this strategy all the time when she performs an action she wasn't fully prepared for.
Alright, I just did that. Okay, now I'm killing zombies.
Speaking out loud, even if no one is around to listen, can help you maintain focus, verbally identifying certain aspects of your environment, such as actions you're taking and things you are feeling allow you to better process the situation at hand. Have you ever found yourself frantically looking for something, then caught yourself verbally speaking about the thing you are looking for? There is legitimate evidence that supports that hearing something spoken aloud as well as witnessing it allows you to identify it with better clarity. If you are searching for a health kit, you will find it faster if you say health kit yourself while searching. The change isn't massive, but still noticeable. This activity assists with centering yourself, as well as allowing you to maintain focus and control of your emotions. This practice can also reduce anxiety in given situations. The explanation for this is still an ongoing process, but if I had to make a guess, I believe the added benefit of allowing information to enter your brain through two avenues is the reason. For the sake of example, let's say you are an average, everyday person. Never used a gun before. You are now being attacked by zombies. Pretty scary, but you are still alive because you shot them with the previously mentioned gun. It was loud, blood went everywhere, not a fun experience. You witnessed this event, and now it's bouncing around in your brain, so you say something out loud in response to this event. Now, technically, you are receiving this information again, but this time it's through your own voice, in your own words, and you are free to express how you feel about the situation. Think of the traumatic memory as murky swamp water. You can run it through a filter and it will be cleaner after you do this, but it'll still have noticeable particulates within. So you run it through a filter once again. Now the water still isn't safe to drink, but it's much more palatable than it was before. This filtering of information allows Rochelle to center herself and further process the information at hand. She is not immune as a result, just more equipped to process things at a faster rate. This quick mental processing is more than likely why she is able to keep a level head and play the mediator between characters. Rochelle was a news reporter, so in a way, she is the most informed member of the group when it comes to the infection.
Holy shit, zombies. I saw the news reports. Hell, I produced some, but wow.
Unfortunately, she only knew what the news was told by Sita, so all she knows is what the general public was told. The actual handling of the outbreak by the government in the Left 4 Dead universe is actually something that could be analyzed itself. Left 4 Dead hosts a fantastic level of environmental storytelling which we will cover in a little bit. But for now, let's get back to Rochelle. She could say outlandish things such as,
By the beard of Zeus, this hurts! Son of a bee sting! This hurts!
These are all references to the Will Ferrell film Anchorman. Rochelle has a distinct sense of humor. Deadpan, often referred to as dry humor. This type of humor thrives off the delivery being done with a neutral expression. Usually, the way the joke is told is made to contrast the absurd nature of what is being described.
You're all right, Virgil.
All right, now you all take real good care now.
That Virgil is a goddamn hero going back there when we are so close. Hey, let's get to that bridge. For Virgil.
You mean that blurry line on the horizon? Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, without luck, that's just a bridge monster.
She can also be seen making sarcastic jokes in her attempt to lighten the mood.
Hey, Ellis, that's a bathtub. You ever seen one before?
Have you smelled yourself recently?
Fair enough.
Get back to shore, signal Virgil with the flare gun and the gun bag. Then we should just, oh, hell. Tell me someone brought the gun bag.
What gun bag?
I could tell you someone named Ellis brought the gun bag like he was supposed to, but I would be lying.
Why didn't you grab it?
Do you think Coach was his first or last name? Ah, Nick. At least you dressed for the funeral.
During the course of the Dead Center campaign, Rochelle goes through a sort of transformation. In the beginning, she can be heard giving her disdain for firearms, but around the time the group arrives at Whitaker's store, we can see her general intrigue turn into full-blown fixation. Rochelle gradually falls in love with firearms. She expresses how the weight of them feels great and that they are fun to shoot. She isn't forthcoming about her fixation initially, no doubt being from a place where guns are not widely accepted. Rochelle is a news reporter who hails from a more metropolitan area. Guns are a hot topic in the media, so any involvement in them could affect how she is treated in the workplace. I don't know what stance Rochelle's news channel has on guns, but considering her inexperience, I would bet she has kept away from them most of her life. Obviously, I'm not here to tell you which is correct. Some people like guns, others don't. It doesn't really matter whether survivors stand on the issue of firearms, because no matter what, they are a necessity in this apocalyptic world. Perhaps the effective nature of guns and how they keep Rochelle safe from the infected is one of the reasons why she has become so fond of them. I should mention, I had no knowledge of this before, but a large portion of Rochelle's lines were cut. So the person who plays Rochelle, the actress, not the face model, is named Rochelle Aites. At the time, she wasn't experienced in doing voiceover work as much as just doing regular acting. During recording sessions, she would read a line and then start to trail off towards the end. You can actually hear this in some of the lines that were allowed to stay.
This is some grim shit we got ourselves into.
Honestly, it's very easy to do this. I am guilty of doing this too from time to time. Sometimes you're so focused on getting the line right you forget about volume. This was rectified when they eventually did DLC. Rochelle has a complex relationship with Nick. They aren't necessarily closer compared to the rest. Nick sort of distances himself away from the group as much as he can, and he manages to trade insults with Coach and Ellis whenever he can. Rochelle is quite the opposite, even teasing Nick from time to time.
I bet Nick remembers the Temple of Love being this long.
Don't worry. Don't worry, I can get you back up.
Thanks.
Sure thing, Ro.
And almost every time he just puts up with it. It seems as if Rochelle is the only person Nick will not argue with. The reason why, I'm not really sure. My best guess is that there is an unspoken level of respect that Nick has for Rochelle, or maybe it stems from Nick's complex perspective of women, which we will talk about. All in all, Rochelle is a confident and capable member of the team. While she isn't the most physically strong or fast, she holds the team together whenever they falter. They are lucky to have her.
Yeah, look, Ellis, all women are emotional wrecks who will eventually kill you, okay?
Finally, we get to the last survivor, the riverboat gambler, Nick. Nick was chosen last because he is the greatest outlier across the others. While you have characters like Coach who have plenty of experience helping people and working in a group, or people like Lewis who stay positive in times of strife, Nick is probably the last type of person you would want to run with in a zombie apocalypse. Nick is a con man, not legally allowed to own a gun, and the $3,000 suit he wears is probably stolen. Nick complains almost constantly. When he's not doing that, he's berating other members of the group over superfluous things such as their accent or their reluctance to cuss. Nick is uncooperative, belligerent, and all in all, untrustworthy. Everything about Nick is a red flag designed to scare you away, and that's exactly what Nick wants. Let's start with his design. Nick treks around in a white suit. Typically, black suits are worn in business settings. A white suit isn't associated with business as much as it can signify a status of wealth or prestige. Nick is described as a gambler in the Left 4 Dead official character introduction. His suit simply acts as a front, designed to encourage people to trust him, making them think he is of higher wealth or status. He can also be heard referencing gambling in his vocabulary, almost like it's his own language.
Ah, shit, come on. We just screwed our odds.
Nick doesn't put faith into any sort of religion or creed. He doesn't depend on anyone, so, naturally, he has shaped his life around the concept of luck. This has led him to make several self-serving decisions, all in the name of himself. Nick is not legally allowed to own a firearm. Considering he lives in America, the firearm capital of the world, he was either on the run from the law, previously charged with possession of an illegal item or substance, or dishonorably discharged from the military. The specific reason is irrelevant, as Nick is implied to have the most experience with firearms. Looking closely, you can see that Nick has a handful of scars, claw marks on his chest. Nick's design speaks volumes, all pointing to someone you do not want to trust, and if his appearance wasn't a dead giveaway, his personality will be sure to hammer the message in for good measure. Nick suffers from OCD, or obsessive-compulsive disorder. And no, that's not a potential affliction, like with Ellis, but a confirmed one, as the audio files are marked Nick OCD in the game files.
It's like rotten eggs here. Does nobody else smell that?
Smells like a raccoon died in a diaper factory.
Ugh, smells like a dirty old white suit that hasn't been dry cleaned in a month.
All I smell is ribs.
Because all you think about is ribs, Coach.
Hey, Nick, you smell that? That's the smell of Coach getting mad.
Whether this is an accurate representation of OCD is not for me to say. Nick occasionally can make comments on germs in the surrounding area, a certain smell that he disagrees with, or Coach's affinity for food. It becomes clear that Nick has germophobic tendencies, has a sensitive nose, and potentially finds larger people unsettling. Again, I am not sure how accurate these are when it comes to what it's like to have OCD. I do know that it affects everyone in different ways, and really the only thing to glean from this is a potential cause of Nick's abrasive personality. From the very beginning, Nick clashes with one or even all of his fellow survivors. On the roof, he can comment on Coach's reluctance to swear. Sometime later, he can be heard insulting Ellis or Coach for living in Georgia. This usually prompts Coach to give Nick a warning, insinuating that his attitude needs to change. Rochelle can chime in as well, telling him that his behavior may have worked in the past, but if they are going to survive, he needs to play ball. Nick is distancing himself from the group. He does this early on, only moments after meeting these people. In the elevator, there are a few ways that Nick can introduce himself. One of them involves him telling the other survivors not to pay attention to his name, and he isn't planning on sticking around. There are multiple dialogues that imply that Nick is attempting to distance himself away from the group. In Nick's dedicated introduction, he is described as being forced into a fragile alliance which goes against everything he lives by. Nick is out for numero uno. This way of life has benefited him and him alone because this is all he knows. He cannot trust anyone, so he pushes people around him away. He does not have any confirmed hometown, so it could be assumed that Nick also doesn't have any immediate family. The only detail which could point towards a possible kinship for Nick comes from the wedding crescendo event in the passing campaign. Well, technically, it can come up at any time that Nick sees a witch.
Taking the shotgun. Oh, there's a sound that's familiar. I think I hear my ex-wife.
Whenever Nick can hear a witch crying, he remarks that it sounds and looks a lot like his ex-wife. That is a pretty big can of worms, but don't you worry because we're opening it right now. Yeah, look at all those worms. Nick mentions how this whole situation brings back bad memories. If you don't remember, there is a special type of witch in the passing campaign that is wearing a wedding dress.
Wedding dress. Crying. This brings back some bad memories. Not again. Here comes the bride!
This specific type of witch counts as her own crescendo event, because if she is alerted, she will also spawn in a horde. A witch in a wedding dress is a creepy image that only solidifies the witch's special as one of the game's creepiest enemies. But to find out that this specific situation is familiar to Nick means this is probably more personal for him. He also has a chance to explain that he has seen a bride that looks very similar to this witch. And lo and behold, if Nick is the one to agitate it, he yells, "Not again." Like I have made it clear in the past, I am not qualified to diagnose anyone. But if I would go with my gut feeling, I believe this is what happened. A while ago, whether before or after Nick turned to a life of crime, he attended a wedding. Maybe it was even his own wedding. And the loving bride-to-be attacked him, mauled him, scratched him, essentially in the same way he was attacked by this witch here. Since then, Nick has had a very clear aversion to weddings and women in general. While Ellis is beside himself trying to find a way to impress Zoe.
Yeah, look, Ellis, all women are emotional wrecks who will eventually kill you, okay?
Nick and his sexist tendencies are no secret. He has a clear image of those around him, and those images are very stereotypical. His comments to Zoe speak for themselves. It would appear that now we have identified the inciting incident which solidifies Nick's perception of women. Is this a correct course of action? No. Do we understand the character now as a result? Absolutely. Is this a proper way to conduct yourself? No. Now that we have gone over all of Nick's flaws, I think we can now see how he changes throughout the story. Left 4 Dead 2 was designed with a more linear progression in mind. This is not always the case, but if you play as Nick in Dead Center, he will usually be less agreeable than if you play as him in a later campaign. When you say anything to Nick, he is noticeably less cheerful, waving off your appreciation. However, performing the same action in a later campaign will result in another line, much more agreeable.
Thank you. Hey, you, take this.
Thanks.
Whatever.
Thanks, Nick. You all right?
Don't worry about it.
Reloading! Reloading!
Before you tell me that this is simply a coincidence, I am pleased to tell you that the whatever lines are specifically labeled in the 100 category in the game's audio files. This category of audio files is also associated with the audio files that play when survivors do not know each other very well. This distinction was intentional, and if there is ever a Left 4 Dead 3, I really want more of this. I love it. Over the course of the game, Nick's abrasive responses usually end up fizzling out, turning into more appreciative and cooperative responses. Nick is now adjusting to the idea of trusting people.
I don't get off the boat. Y'all gonna have to get the gasoline and get back here. Hurry back with the gasoline. I'll be waiting here.
Stay away from the shore until we signal you.
Do you trust that guy?
He's good people.
Fair enough. But you're the first 3 people in the world I have ever trusted. Shit, I don't even trust myself.
Well, I don't know, Nick. I learned to trust you. So what do I know?
In that case, I don't think we can trust your judgment in this matter.
The world was dangerous for him before, and despite what he may think prior, he needs these people. He needs Coach to be there to tell him to watch his mouth. He needs Ellis to give him a taste of his own medicine. And he needs Rochelle to put him in his place. All of these people which Nick now travels with come from more virtuous walks of life, and as a result, a transformation can be seen in almost all of the survivors, as they begin to talk to each other more and more. Coach learns to be a little less uptight, using cuss words more often. While this isn't the most crucial life lesson to learn, I think there could be a sense of peace for Coach now that he no longer has to censor himself. Ellis is not a fan of the hazing, and that is probably why he throws a few insults back at Nick when he feels so inclined. Ellis doesn't chase after the acceptance of others through dares anymore. And of course, one of the more dramatic transformations. Nick doesn't become a honest and lovely and caring good member of society, but he's getting there. He finally learns that he has a heart of gold. Well, more or less. Okay, not really, he's still a jerk, but there is a bigger conversation to be had about those with less than ideal personalities. While of course I would never defend Nick's habits or the way he conducts himself, the question begs, would Nick have turned out the way he did had he not been dealt the hand he was? Would he still have been a sexist, belligerent jerk if he was born into a nicer family? A family like Coach's family or Ellis's family? Also, would he have never learned to trust people had he not found the other survivors? The way I see it, you have a choice. Choose what to be, or let fate choose for you. Maybe that is why Nick has adopted this gambling lingo. Maybe he suffered from misfortune after misfortune to find that luck was to blame for it all, whether it was true or not. Left 4 Dead is host to some incredible storytelling, just vague enough so that you can fill in some gaps by yourself, but distinct enough to give you something to go off of. Left 4 Dead's worlds are meant to be experienced in small bursts. Most campaigns take anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes, depending on how much sightseeing you're doing. While we have talked extensively about the successful character writing, we haven't stopped to admire the wonderful environmental storytelling. Environmental storytelling is a facet of every video game, but occasionally I find that it is forgotten by both developers and players alike. You could walk past several objects that develop the story without even realizing it. Due to the situational and environmental nature of Left 4 Dead's dialogue, certain important lines can be missed. For example, in the Dead Center campaign, if you walk into this room on the right, you can see a map that is left behind by Sita.
Hell yeah. But you look at this map, folks, I think New Orleans is the last city standing in the country. How the hell did they capture this thing already?
This map not only explains the reach of the zombie plague, but also represents how apocalyptic the situation is. Several arrows all point to New Orleans, a city in Louisiana that is supposedly safe from the outbreak. This would be referred to as the inciting incident, or the event that kicks the story into motion. The Left 4 Dead campaigns were designed to carry a narrative through line, instead of being just islands of content. So it was important to establish an overall end goal for the survivors to achieve. This room also establishes how the government has already started capturing special infected. Throughout the Dead Center campaign, the effects of the outbreak are clear and conveniently used to build the geometry of the world. Roadblocks mark dead ends that impede your progress, giving an in-universe explanation for your limited range of movement. Abandoned medical tents further show the severity of the infection, and the zombified people in hazmat suits are a good representation of how poorly CETA is handling the situation. On the road leading to the Whispering Oaks Hotel, there is a military Hummer with several dead bodies in front of it. This subtle arrangement of things instills an idea into the player's mind that the military were killing people who were infected, or even killing people before they turned. This idea sits in the back of the player's minds until they get to the actual hotel. This area was closed down due to infection, and by looking into the motel's pool, you can see a pile of partially burnt bodies alongside some gas canisters. After you see a gas canister inside the pile of burnt bodies, there is no mistake at this point. This motel was used as a temporary base, which potentially extended into the amusement park itself. Burning of the infected was a tactic the military would use to stop the spread of infection. Whether these people were going to turn or not is a frightening thought that will continue to sit in the back of the player's minds for this campaign and the next. The pessimistic player would already make the conclusion that these were just regular people who were infected, but at this point, the story could go either way. This type of environmental storytelling is a lot more difficult to pull off, but I believe they accomplish this with flying colors. This is interpretive environmental storytelling. It's distinct enough to know that there was no denying that the military was here and they burnt the bodies to kill the disease and stop them from resurrecting. However, it is not clear what the overall situation was. It is also vague enough so that the player can form their own conclusion. Of course, we haven't even talked about the wall graffiti yet. Safe rooms have always been implied to be used by other people before your arrival. While it is tragic to show up and read the hopeless inscriptions of people who are dead, at the very least, you can know their story so they are not forgotten. In the last chapter of the Dark Carnival campaign, the safe room can be filled with the writings of several disgruntled fans of the Midnight Riders. Some people believe that they are dead, while other voices correct them, stating that the Midnight Riders were evacuated via helicopter some time ago. The wall graffiti in Left 4 Dead accomplishes the same effect as the bodies in the pool. You don't know who wrote what message first, and you have no idea if these people can be considered reliable narrators. Especially considering there is a Midnight Rider Easter egg in the Passing campaign. Whether factual or otherwise, these writings tell the stories of the survivors that came before. I always thought it was a missed opportunity to not allow people to leave messages here for other players. Kinda like Dark Souls. Swamp Fever exposes a different side of the zombie outbreak. Where earlier we saw the metropolitan areas that were heavily populated by government and military personnel, this village rejected that entirely but was infected all the same. The sign that tells the military and CETA to stay away not only explains how this area was also able to fall to infection, but also explains why the military might be a group with a bad reputation. Essentially, building off of the doubt planted in the earlier campaigns, this sign implies that the military was seen as a nefarious force rather than a vital ally. Now, this could just be a prime example of swamp people xenophobia, but perhaps they had a valid reason for refusing access to their home. Finally, we get to the Parish campaign, where we are introduced to the concept of a carrier. A carrier is immune to the infection, but they can still carry the pathogen and infect everyone else. Carriers are specifically being called off to a new location. There are very specific signs hung up around the decontamination units. People are discouraged from ignoring commands from the military, running, or acting aggressive. Considering there were people who were carrying the pathogen but were not exhibiting symptoms, I could imagine that paranoia was at an all-time high. People who you processed and allowed into the safe area could turn infected the next day, because one of their friends was a carrier. Then there's the matter of what to do with the non-carriers. You are left with a moral dilemma. On one side, you have 100 people who are carriers. They have the virus, but do not have symptoms. They can infect other people who are not carriers, of which there are 1,000. So who do you save? Do you save the people who can get infected, or the ones who cannot get infected. Logic would dictate you save those who are immune, and these are unfortunately mutually exclusive options, because you cannot save both at the same time. This is more than likely the reason why the carriers were sent away first, to stop the spread of the virus, while simultaneously keeping the non-carriers safe. This can only go on for so long, however. Not every human is lucky enough to be immune. And also, if a non-carrier were to ever come into contact with an actual carrier, you might be forced to do something drastic. In the safe room, past the quarantine zone, we see the end result of that dilemma. It would appear that those who carried the infection but were not immune were brought to this area and either let loose or executed. Naturally, we don't know the full story. Maybe these people were already dead. But either way, the suspicions can now be laid to rest, and it is clear that not everyone is subject to the zombie outbreak. That also explains the existence of the survivor groups. All 8 Left 4 Dead survivors are carriers of the disease. All of this essential plot information was told with little to no words. It wasn't spoon-fed to us. It was always here to be understood, but it was our decision to find it for ourselves. As a result, those that are much more invested in the world of Left 4 Dead have a clearer understanding of events that led the world to this moment. This is a win-win because simultaneously the section of the player base who did not care are not bogged down by the story at hand. This is the power of environmental storytelling. Those who seek more are given more, while those who are content have all they ever want. To wrap up this video, I wanted to get real for a second. I have already mentioned several times how all of the survivors are diverse in their backgrounds, as well as their personalities, highlighted how impressive it is that they all get along. But honestly, when Left 4 Dead was first released, this level of cooperation was never questioned. Nowadays, it feels like the bonds between these characters feel less and less believable. Like, considering how divided the world is, it can be hard to believe that these different people would be able to work together. In the beginning, I talked about conflict and how it can be internal or external. In the modern day, we are no strangers to conflict, whether it's class disparity, prejudice over ethnic backgrounds, or just playing for another team. It seems like more than ever, we come up with new things to fight each other about. I'm not saying that we should all just give up on the things that we believe in, throw away our values, and stop fighting. What I am saying is that when we're done fighting, we just go back to talking normally. I, like many other people, have my own set of beliefs. I strongly believe that my side is correct, but despite this, I can still make the time to understand why the other side believes that they are right. I think we all need to start acting like a Left 4 Dead group. Some of us may identify more with someone like Bill. Others identify with someone like Zoe, but the key takeaway to understand is that they both care for each other. It's okay to fight. Heck, fighting is sometimes the only way to solve an issue, but we are going to have to remember, not just as a people, but as a species, we can never see the other side as less than human. That has happened several times throughout human history, and I'm pretty sure we all know how terrible that was. It is early 2025 as I write this script, and things are looking bleak right now in the world. I wonder how long it will take for me to look back at this video and realize I was worried for nothing. If I ever do. Things are pretty bad right now, but of course, they are not nearly as bad as things are in the Left 4 Dead universe. The survivors of Left 4 Dead have clear lessons to teach us that falls beyond just working together. The sappy Saturday morning cartoon message of everyone coming together is great, but in the real world, that rarely happens. You will argue with people. Other people will say things that make you upset. You are in a lot of ways a direct result of your past, but that does not dictate who you are now. You can disagree with other people, fight with other people. Just try to remember, they are other people, and they deserve a place on Earth just as much as you do. Unless you're talking about the type of person that intentionally makes it harder for other people to exist. Those people can piss off, no matter who they subscribe to. That's all I really wanted to say. So, I will wrap this up by saying that Left 4 Dead is one of the best zombie shooters I have ever played. When you finally have the full picture of these characters, it makes you appreciate the game so much more. Whether it's Nick learning to trust people, Bill trying to guide his group the best he can, Zoe quoting her favorite movies, or Lewis holding on to his humanity, These characters tie the game together, much like they tie their own groups together, both figuratively and literally adding a human element to it. Left 4 Dead is one of the first computer games I ever owned. I remember when I was little, I would enjoy watching clips of early streamers play Left 4 Dead, back when Twitch.tv was Justin.tv. I wonder how many of the people watching can remember that. If you made it this far in the video, then thank you. If you could do me a favor, let me know what you thought of the video. Critiques, comments, other details I left out that I missed. Let me know if the video was boring in some places or if the audio wasn't perfect. I don't have any YouTube experts to proofread my videos or whatever, so the only way I can improve is by taking in direct feedback from all of you. If you enjoyed your time here, and you appreciate talking about video games, music, or movies, maybe try out the Nighthawk Discord server. It's relatively new, but in time I hope it becomes a place where people can talk about their favorite things. Occasionally, I upload memes, music from videos, as well as the occasional behind the scenes and sneak peeks. I even uploaded the first 20 minutes of this video to the Discord server weeks before this video even released. So, if you want to swing by and talk about all the things you're passionate about, and perhaps see some sneak peeks or behind the scenes stuff about my videos, then I hope to see you there. We welcome everyone as long as you're respectful of others. So, until next time, thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.